Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, auspicious greetings. It's an honor to be back. I was here 2 years ago, and I'm happy to come back to Singapore as always, and to meet all our Dharma friends. Well, I'm sure maybe a few weeks ago, Venerable Jue Wang was here, right? And she talked about the decline of Buddhism. So I will follow up with that. So she kind of mentioned to me that it was very sad because it's a decline of Buddhism in China. And it's just say, okay, I advertise for you because I told them you'll be talking about the current developments. So what we call contemporary development, of course, is not just about today. Maybe we could kind of loosely say that it's within the past 100 years or so, or within the past 100 years. The Republic was just a little over 100 years. And before that, it was the end of the Qing dynasty. So those were very difficult times, very, very difficult times for the Chinese people, especially those actually living in China and going through all the wars and the upheavals and so on. So we know that with Buddhism, it's not just talking, It's good to have someone to talk, but it's still important for the individual, especially for lay people, to have something to read, to something to refer to, and you can share, because not everyone can talk, right? Not everyone can really explain. So it's good that we must have something in writing, publications. So there are two parts to my presentation, cultural publications and also what we call educational undertakings. So it's like all the way. I'm sure you all have this book. Yeah. I said Herman has one, right? Yeah. So anybody else? Yeah. So I'm sure that a lot of people, good. So it's based on this. And I'm just having some of the highlights. And of course, the focus would be on what Fo Guangshan and especially Venerable Master Hsing Yun has done in the past 50 years, actually. It's really not exactly 50 years. It's more than that. Because everyone knows that this is the 50th anniversary of Fo Guangshan. Exactly 50 years now. We are now entering our 51st, actually. So it's just give you some idea, what's going to be today and also tomorrow. And of course, Singapore is the only place that I have to do 2 days. And so I have to let you know first, I try to cover most of the publications part, and then maybe I try to finish off tomorrow afternoon with the rest, and which of course would include educational undertakings. And I'm pleased to report to everyone, this is so far, all the talks I've given, this is a temple with most of the books, most of the books here, that in English, that's available, that I can share, and you can actually come up and look at them, all right? So let's move on. Cultural publications. So, of course, publications or publishing is all about the teachings, right? It's always the teachings. And what did the Buddha do, actually? Well, in the Buddhist time, of course, you're talking about ancient India. You're talking about more than 2,500 years ago. The Dharma was orally transmitted. It's just verbal. And I think it's Indian culture that they like to memorize. They like to listen. But they don't like to put it into so-called writing or books or whatever you call them. They don't want to make it a record in a way. So it's all oral transmission. And in those times, the spoken language would be Pali, and the written language would be Sanskrit. So nowadays, I think in Theravadan Buddhism, they would still have books in Pali, and they still would speak in Pali. But of course, this we say that, of course, it's like us talking as well, right? So we write somewhat differently than we talk. So Sanskrit will be for people who have maybe more refined, maybe had a better education. And of course, in the Buddhist time, the caste system was very strong, right? The 4 castes. And so different people, different castes may be communicating in different levels and different ways. So, and later, of course, all these become texts. And how did it happen? The Buddha's major disciples, many of them were already arhats. So after the Buddha has passed away or entered into parinirvana, they decided to compile what the Buddha taught. And who had the best memory? Ananda. Because, well, first of all, he was the cousin, or maybe, I think he was maybe a stepbrother, okay? And he's always with the Buddha. He would listen to everything, and he had that excellent memory. So he would kind of recite, okay, and then what he remembered and memorized. So this is how it kind of started to happen. And the disciples were wise enough to know that somehow we have to make a record, okay? We have to agree on what was taught and make a record. So that's why eventually there were even some texts in what patra leaves, right? In patra leaves, and eventually they do have those kind of being written down, being recorded into some sort of volumes, all right, some sort of scripture. So that's how the text came. But if you look at the Dharma is not just writing. The Dharma can be spoken, can be taught in different forms. And besides text, there's also what we call art. Look around this room. Okay, look around this room. Well, you have paintings, you have what? Masters calligraphy, right? Those are all Dharma. We could say that nothing is not Dharma, almost, all right? And sculptures, of course, there's a sculpture of Master Singh. You have a lot of Buddhist statues, any kind of art, actually, and paintings, okay, that can also speak the Dharma, that also be teaching the Buddha's teachings. So let's fast forward, because I'm not going to spend here then talk about 250, 2,500 years of how it all progressed, okay? So let's fast forward, and the focus is more on what contemporary Chinese Buddhism. So we know about a lot of persecutions, okay? Temples were torn down, sutras were burned, monastics were killed, murdered, or forced to go home, or forced to get married and have families. There were major persecutions in Chinese history, so we don't need to go into that. But eventually, the Dharma was preserved. Okay, we persevered, and we moved back to what we call the current or the last century. In Chinese Buddhism, of course, we all know that Buddhism was passed into China in the Eastern Han Dynasty, and how long ago was that? More than 2,000 years. Eastern Han, Dong Han, right? So over the 2,000 years, all those things happened and developed, and we persevered, okay? We persevered, and the teachings were preserved, okay? However, in the last, like late Qing and the early Republic of China eras, those were very bad times for Buddhism. We say it's a religion for the dead. Somebody died, we call a monk. We need to get a monk. Okay, of course, they wouldn't have telephones. They would go to a temple and ask for a monk. Okay, someone in my family died, my father died, my grandma, have a monk to come and chant, have a service. Otherwise, they wouldn't think of Buddhism. Or Buddhism was very elitist. Only those with a good education, only those who can really read those very difficult pages and scriptures, then they would know Buddhism. But Master Hsing Yun always thought that that's why this book is called what? Holding true to the original intents of Buddha. So what was the original intents of the Buddha? The Buddha came to teach is to help what? Help people. The Buddha came to this world, and this world will be what? The human world, with human beings, humanity. So it doesn't mean that it's gonna, when we all die, then we think of Buddhism. Buddhism is to be used in our lives, in our daily lives especially, all right? So those are very bad times. And of course, the Sangha was not educated. A lot of problems right there that, it's really detrimental. And people don't look upon monks with respect. Either they are so elitist, they cannot contact with them, they cannot connect with their level of intellectualism, or they look down upon them. Because somebody died, you see a monk. I mean, what kind of feeling is that? I mean, you see a monk and it says, equals death, okay? So that is not a very good situation. So we need to publish and have texts out and for distribution. And I'd like to draw your attention to this special Jingling Sutra Publishing House. And if you know Jingling is Jinling is what? Nanjing, okay? And this is a very well-recognized, devoted居士, a lay member, a lay person, Mr. Yang Wenhui, okay? Now he established that, and even up to today, okay, Jingling still prints and publishes sutras. So it's 100 years, so look how wonderful that could be, right? It's not just sutras. So like I said, I'm highlighting these. And there's also called a Humanistic Buddhism magazine. That was way back even before Master Xing Yun, was ordained. And this is by Venerable Tzu Hang. So Master Xing Yun was a very young monk, and he learned from Master Venerable Tzu Hang as well. And I'm sure maybe some of you may have heard of Ding Fu Bao. Ding Fu Bao is what? Is a lay person who had compiled a dictionary of Buddhist studies. So let's look at that. So this is the Jingling. It's a little fuzzy, I'm sorry, because this is very big. This is the Jingling Publishing House. Okay, and it's still working. Look at this. It's a modern car. So this is, I did not Photoshop this, all right? So this is a car. That means this is contemporary. Yeah, it's now, exactly. And this is the Ding Fu Bao, okay? So this is the Fo Xue Da Ci Dian. We are more familiar with Fo Guang Da Ci Dian, right? The Venerable Guang is still working very hard on. So maybe some of our older, should I say old, more experienced or more those who've learned Buddhism long ago, and they may, if they're lucky enough, it's almost like, a collection, all right? This is the first Chinese, okay, Buddhist dictionary, all right? So, but these are not enough, because sutras, look at some of the sutras, and you look at some of the original texts of some of the, what we call the Tripitaka, Dai Zhang Jing, there's no punctuations. Well, there's no paragraphing. Even if you know Chinese very well, you may find it very difficult to read, okay, to read only, not to really understand its meaning. And that's why Fo Guang Shan has this special unit. They're very behind the scenes. They're very quiet. They're always working very hard. They all say that doing cultural work is very lonely. It is very lonely because and you have to be very focused. Okay, it's like us translating as well. When I shut off, whatever's outside so that I can work. Okay, because you have to be really go deep, okay, into the wordings and the language. So we are doing a lot of re-editing, and I'm sure you have in your library more current re-edited canon, Fo Guang, okay, Fo Guang Dai Zhang Jing. It's different division, Chan or Pure Land or Hua Yan and all that. So it takes a lot of work, okay, to kind of re-edit and to interpret and make it accessible. So what happened is we need what? We need to circulate. We need to make people have access, okay? So that's why we have a wide circulation of Buddhist publications. Now this is very funny, at rock bottom prices, okay? So that means I wouldn't call it cheap, very inexpensive and accessible, okay? So it may be worth a little bit than the paper than this. Maybe say, this is not for sale, right? This is not for sale. And many books in Fo Guang Shan or by Master Xing Yun, those are not for sale either. They are given away as gifts, okay, to encourage people to read. And however, we have people who are willing to support the publishing, the printing. Okay, we need sponsors, we need donors, okay, to do that. So we can go a little deeper in that later on. And now we can see that Human Life, it's not Humanistic Buddhism, but it's called Human Life magazine by Venerable Dong Chu, and also Awakening the World, 觉世, okay, periodical. And this is like a 10-day small booklet or magazine put out And it's by another very well-known Buddhist, a lay person called Zhang Shaoqi. And actually, Mr. Zhang Shaoqi moved to America in his older years. And when he passed away, I think he passed away is almost 100 years old, if not older, many years ago, more than 15 years ago. And I so happened, I was already at Silai Temple, and I went to the service as well. So he was very much respected, okay? So he founded all these, okay? And notice what I put in brackets. Master Xing Yun was editor-in-chief for both these magazines. So you will know that Master Xing Yun has started out very early and involved in what? In cultural works, in publishing, in editing, in putting out books, magazines, and writings on the teachings. So let's look at a copy. We still have a copy of it. And I think if you go to Guoguangshan, 中史馆 the historical museum, I'm sure you will see, maybe you still can see maybe a few copies of these, all right? Now, so I mentioned earlier on about touring Taiwan to promote the Tripitaka is because Master Xing Yun wants Taiwan people to know about the actual scriptures. Okay, when he went there, and way back then in the early, late 49 is when the communists took over. So he went to Ilan in the early 50s. And he discovered that people don't really know what's the difference between Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, or just folk practice. He went to Ilan, the temple, Leiyin Temple, okay? Leiyin Temple was occupied by a family of some soldiers, okay? And they don't care about what's out there. They don't care about the shrine. It's a mess, okay? So he started to straighten out and to kind of let people know what is what, okay? What is the right Dharma? What are the teachings? So what is better than showing them what is the Tripitaka? But then you know that it's not so easy to make copies, to print. So, and then he did not act by himself alone, because you can see there's a reprinting committee tour. And he was one of the tour leaders. And together with young Buddhists from Ilan. And look at these names. Ci Wei, Ci Rong, Ci Lian. They are young Buddhists. Did you remember Venerable Ci Rong was at Singma Temple, and how old did she say? Oh, good. She's 82 this year. And back then, she was a young Buddhist, okay, like many of you here. Okay? So now, because going around the island is not like today. Today we have the high-speed rail, right? Hour and a half, you're from Taipei to Kaohsiung, or maybe, the other way around, and maybe longest is what, 2 hours? I don't know, because I never take the long trip. There's always a short one. But it would take them, 80 days. But of course, you're not just speeding from one place to another. They have to take their time and explain and so on. And imagine, in those days, you don't have those big fancy copying machines like we have here. You just press a button, okay, 100 sets, okay, 200 sets. Those are very tedious work to make sets and copies. But they succeeded. They succeeded some 100 sets. That's quite an achievement in 80 days. Get the sponsorship and get it done. And people, and actually it's raising awareness. It's raising awareness that this is the right Dharma. This is something we should look at. This is something we should refer to. All right. So this is a major, I would say, a major endeavor at that time. Okay. And to show you what it looks like, see, you can see, right? 中华佛教文化. This is photocopy, 影印, okay? 大藏经环岛, going around the island of Taiwan, okay? And this is Master Xing Yun, of course, and you have other venerables. And I always ask, do you see who is Venerable Ci Rong here? Or Venerable Ci Wei? There's a lot of historical pictures, okay? It's very interesting. They're there, I'm sure, okay? And I said earlier on, it's very deep, very profound, okay? The teachings are profound, and it's not that easy to read, not to say understand. So what we need now, next is what we call reader-friendly books on Buddhism to assist the greater dissemination. So reader-friendly. So what nowadays we call user-friendly, right? You buy a device and say, how do I use this? Which button to press? How many steps? Okay, do I have to go back and forth? And if I press the wrong thing, I deleted it and I'm lost forever. And you don't like that device. So now it's talking about reader-friendly. That means that you pick up a book, you turn a few pages, you still want to go on, right? You're interested. It captures your attention. You want to know more. That's reader-friendly. So I'm not sure if you know Hu Xi, okay? A very renowned contemporary Chinese scholar, Wu Xi, okay? And what did he say? Writing is like talking. You write in exactly the same way as you talk. But of course, you have to talk well. It's not like, you're talking very bad language. You curse and then you write it down. That's not how we should write, right? So that means plain, simple, easy to understand language. So in the 1950s, when Master Hsing Yun, that was just a few years after he went to Taiwan. Imagine, he was still in his maybe mid-20s only, okay? He established already the what we call Buddhist cultural service centers in Taipei and Kaohsiung, north and south. And if you know what is our mission of Fo Guang Shan, I'm sure you all know that. The 4 objectives or the 4 missions. What is the first one? Okay, Buddhism 101, come on. What is the first one of Fo Guang Shan's mission? To have what? Through what? Through cultural endeavors to spread Buddhism, to spread the Dharma. 文化弘扬佛法, right? Okay, that's the first one. So already, you're talking about in the 50s, okay, Master Hsing Yun already realized how important it is, all right? So what did he do? He started to write. And the first book ever is what? This one. Of course, that was in Chinese, okay, and I can show you that. And I'm sure many of you was at Singma Temple, and you went into the Fo Guang Shan Historical Museum, right? And then you started, halfway through, you started seeing, there's this book, what? Fo Tuan, right on the wall. And why was Master here in Malaysia or even Singapore? Of course, they were focusing on Malaysia, at the Singma Temple. And Master was here to what? To propagate the Buddha, actually, the biographies, the story of the Buddha. So he wanted people to know right away who is the founder of Buddhism, right? Who is this particular founder of a religion, or what are we trying to believe in? What is that? Where did it come from? It must come from somewhere or someone. So it was the Buddha. So he came here back then in the 60s with many copies of this book. And now it's translated into many languages as well. So that's the first big one, should I say, okay? And how did he write it? Do you remember? How did Master Hsing Yun write the biography? On a sewing machine. And if he did not have a desk, he did not have a table even, okay? Or it's not like, okay, the dining table can be also a desk. No, he has a sewing machine, any kind of flat surface. And he was able to write the story of the Buddha, okay? And he, of course, he published and printed many, many copies back then. And again, of course, a magazine, Awakening the World. And if you fast forward really quickly, in year 2000, we had the Maritime Shenzhen Fubao in year 2000. It's a daily newspaper and it's still running. Back then, people were not too optimistic about, if this daily newspaper can persist, especially if it's Buddhism. But it did, and it's still printing, it's still going very strong. It's entering campuses and schools actually in Taiwan. And now we have the digital copies, we're keeping up with the times, right? And in America, the initial 4 years, and I think Venerable Miao was involved as well, right? We were editing the English pages. We did it for 4 years. But it really became not so feasible over time because people thought that it's a little late to have printed copies. So we kind of changed the format, and of course now we have digital copies as well as working with the local newspapers to have the paper copy as well. All right, and the 365 days for travelers, I'm sure you know this very well, and it's again translated into different languages. Buddhist affinities across 100 years, that would be what? 百年佛缘, okay? And hear me out. Messages from a humble monk. 平生有话要说, okay? So these are the more current ones. So look at this. This is, well, again, this is a little fascinating, but I'm sure you recognize this Buddha statue, right in the main shrine of Fogong-san, right? So this is Fozhuan. And 觉世, okay? And all this Puma. Now, all these, and of course, we know 人间福报. And really, the latest one is what? The complete works of Venerable Master Hsing Yun, 全集. And the more recently, I think in the last couple of days, in Taiwan at least, it was being given the whole set of 365 books, okay? It's not just 365 days, it's 365 books. That is by Master Hsing Yun, and is being presented to the universities, the National Library, the museums, and so on in Taiwan, okay? And branch temples around the world are also working on that, but we have to get the actual, it has to be moved there by containers because it's a whole set. If you've been to Fogong-san recently, I'm sure anyone of you have seen this, 传集, or at the directors meeting, the Bleer meeting in Ximang Temple. They have one special session to explain this, and they have the whole set right outside the main shrine. This is 传集, okay? However, maybe here in Singapore, not so many of you can read Chinese so well, right? Especially not the traditional Fanti Chinese. But I'd like to tell you, many of the books within 传集 are like here, English. We already translated that, such as Ignorance and Enlightenment, such as For All Living Beings, and some of the Sutras, etc. So, because 传集 includes all the works ever by Master Hsing Yun, okay? So, another thought here. Why do we have books and let people have access to it in rock bottom prices? And how, you know? So, because why do we have to do that? Because we're catering to the needs of the time with suitable means of propagation. Because people are like what? Not just reading. What else? Translations. Because now we're what? A global citizen. Okay, globalization, internationalization, that means more than one language. Into different languages. And look at this, okay. We just said that you write how you talk the way you write or write the way you talk. But look at this. We're talking about literary quality. It must be good, okay? It must be good writing. Written in what? Easy to understand languages. That is what? Relevant to life. So 3 ideas here. Literary quality, easy to understand, and relevant to life. Okay, you can have a lot of poems, but nobody can understand, so what's the use? Very literary, very beautiful, but it's not easy to understand. And it's not relevant to life, okay? You're like daydreaming all the time, say. So that's not very useful, right? And also nowadays, everybody has something like this, even if we do, okay? Everybody has some sort of electronic device. So digital mediums, e-books, audiobooks, right? And apps, all right? All of that are what? Just expedient means which humanistic Buddhism holds true to the original intents of Buddha to cater to the needs of all beings. It's to help people. The Buddha came to the world for one very, very unique reason, a major reason, is to share the teachings for the benefit of all beings, so that they could what? They could have happiness, okay? So this is the whole purpose of how Master Hsing Yun wants to publish and write and to have all these books out in different languages. This part will be sharing with you where I'm coming from, what I'm actually doing right now, okay? So, Buddhist-like publications, I kind of make this into a different color because it used to be called publishing. If you look at some of these books, it's still under publishing. But it's now publications, and sometimes we call it BLP or BLP USA. And a very important unit, Fogong-san International Translation Center, FGSITC. Oops, okay. So let's talk about FGSITC. What is its mission? It is dedicated to translating and distributing quality translations, mind you, quality of translations, okay, of classical Buddhist texts, that means sutras, as well as works by contemporary Buddhist teachers and scholars. We embrace humanistic Buddhism and promote Buddhist writing, which is, okay, the key words here, accessible, okay, community-oriented, and relevant to daily life. You notice what is keeping repeating here? Accessible, relevant. And, well, this sounds new, community-oriented. So what are communities made of? People, us, you and me. So it must be what? Accessible for us, for me. And it must be relevant to our lives, okay? So this is all about humanistic Buddhism, and this is the mission of the Translation Center. Now, for us, for publishing, okay, Buddhist Life Publishing, or BLP, was established in what, 2001? Oh, I missed out this one. I should let you. Oh, okay, yeah, I missed out that. It was what, established in what, 1996. Do the math. How many years? 21 years. As at Xilai Temple, Foguangshan, Xilai Temple, LA. How many of you has been to Xilai Temple? Not so many. Way back there, 没有觉法师. Okay, that's a Xilai Temple. Okay, so this is our mission. And we go to publishing. Actually, publishing was also established at Xilai Temple initially. And they were, so BLP publishing in 2001, again do the math, is what, 16 years. So we're over 15 years, and that's over 20 years. And we're publishing books that is translated by FGSITC. Since we have published over 100 titles, so we're not small. A small publisher is maybe a few or maybe 20, okay, that's small, but we're all about 100. So it includes sutras, classical writings, contemporary writings, art, poetry, academic, historical, short stories, and even what, children and young adults. So we cover the whole spectrum. And so maybe you say, hey, I don't actually see 100 volumes or titles, because some of them are out of print and being re-edited, being, you know, kind of added on and taken out, and because we have to be contemporary. We have to, and also we want him to be more accessible and readable, okay? And what happened to us in 2015, okay, actually now I'm entering my 3rd year. So we are reorganized as independent and for-profit company, okay, for furthering our mission to publish quality English books on humanistic Buddhism. So you may ask, so you're trying to make money for profit? Well, I'm sorry, I'm not making any money actually. In America, maybe in some other Western countries, when you are a company, okay, you can only register as a for-profit. You can only do what we call corporation. And that makes us what kind of, we can be on the same par as with wisdom or Buddhist publisher in the West, okay? So we have to sell books, okay? We have to sell books in a sense. And where are we? We are right actually very close at the bottom of the hill. If you've been to Xilai Temple, it's on a little hill, and the area is called Hacienda Heights. So we are on Hacienda Boulevard, and we all have a website, okay? And we have Facebook page too. So any one of you have a Facebook page, like us, all right? You type in Buddhist Life Publications, you find us there, like, all right? I hope, you know, you can get more news from us and what we do. And to show you where we are, this is our little office. We have to be inside. As a company, we cannot be housed, so to speak, inside a temple. So we need like what we call a commercial address. So we have this plaza, and this is our office. And I'm happy to say that this is written by Master for. So this is our treasure, the treasure of our office and the little shrine, okay? And on the other side, this place, okay? And behind right here is our office, okay? It's where we work. And we're not a bookstore. We're not a bookstore. We're just an office. So if ever You're visiting Los Angeles, come visit us, okay? Let us know in advance, okay? Talk to Miao. She's been there for many years as well, right? So this is what we are, okay? This is where I come from. And show you some of our so-called well-known books, all right? First of all, biographies. Which one? What are the biographies? Okay, let me show you. Actually, these two. These two are the, I want to highlight these two, okay? So, Handing Down the Light. I'm sure every one of us almost, as a Fo Guangshan follower, would have read or seen Handing Down the Light, either English, Chinese, or whatever. Okay, 全当. And actually, we won a small recognition, okay, with this book. And of course, Sakyamuni Buddha. Okay, Sakyamuni Buddha. Now, let me ask you. This is a book, a story, right? A biography, all about Buddha. And maybe you say, hey, I don't have time, it's a thick book. You know, how many pages, right? Okay, and it's heavy, and I'm not used to holding a book. So, it may be a little difficult for me to finish this book. But maybe, have you seen something very beautiful lately called Prince Siddhartha? Prince Siddhartha was here, right? The musical. And that was based on this book. We're talking about multi-mediums, right? This is it. You have to give them credit, you have to give them, you know, a lot of recognition, because all these years, they have been doing this for more than 10 years now. And they actually made a musical with all the songs and dances and beautiful costumes and back sets and so on from the biography. All those are based, what the whole musical is based on this book, and all those songs and lyrics are lyrics by Master Hsing Yun for 人间姻缘, Sounds of the Human World. And they compose music to those lyrics, to those sayings, and so on. So isn't it wonderful? So, okay, you know, if you have a young person who may be more artistic, or people who don't want to read, take them to Fo Guangshan or wherever where they're staging a musical. They were in Los Angeles. We staged one as well for our 25th anniversary of Silai Temple. And that was in 2013. And we staged it in the Pasadena, Pasadena Theater. And what happened was we invited people from other faith groups and people who know us to watch them. And most of them thought that we're showing them a movie. They thought that, oh, they may have a movie somehow, you know, and then this is like something to, you know, to celebrate the Buddhist story. They did not know that we actually have actual people singing and dancing and different, you know, changes of sets and so on, and props, okay? They were so surprised. And this is what we do. This is what we can do, okay? So we should be very proud as well, okay, for that kind of achievement by fellow Buddhists, all right? So of course, with the Buddha, with a master, there should be a lot of teachings, books on the teachings of Buddhism. So again, like I said, you know, this is so far the first temple I gave a talk on to have all these books already. Any book that I'm showing you, you have it here, all right? So let me see, Being Good. Okay, Being Good is here. And the other one is Core Teachings, is the other one here, all right? I think it's here. I don't want to upset that because it may all fall down. So these are the two books that will give you what? If you say, I don't really know what are the concepts of Buddhism, Core Teachings, you would know the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Paths, the dependent origination, karma, emptiness, nirvana, all of that. And the last chapter is on Humanistic Buddhism. Okay, so I'm sure you may have a study group or you may have a class. Some of the group leaders, okay, I'm sure you know this book very well. So, and this is about the fourth or the fifth printing, okay? And every time when we reprint, we will re-edit, we will look at it, we'll proofread, and just make it better, okay? And this one just came out last year. Being Good, okay? Being Good is actually one of the earliest English books, okay, that is made very popular. And you may ask, so, you know, what's the difference between these two? You look at it, this is called what? Buddhist Ethics for Everyday Life. So a lot of people don't understand Buddhism. They thought it was superstition. They thought it was like, oh, you worship idols or, you know, all those things. But actually it's about what? Living an ethical life. Buddhist ethics. So I would say this is the what. This is the how and even the why. How do we, after learning all this, okay, all the concepts are not just in the books. We have to use them. Use them in our everyday life. Application, okay? So these are, I would say you can read these side by side, all right? Or you can do study groups, okay? And this one, okay, it's over here. What in brief is Buddhism? We just mentioned that those are books by scholars. And I don't know if any one of you have heard of Dr. Ananda Guruge. Yeah, good. He passed away some years ago. And before he passed away, we had his approval to re-edit and reprint this book. The original book, I think some of the temples may still have it. Of course, the title is the same. It's called What in Brief is Buddhism. And because I know him quite well, and I was kind of jokingly say, oh, you know, what in brief is brief, remember, in Buddhism, is about 400 plus pages. I said, what about if you say, what in depth is Buddhism? What are we going to get, a phone book? It's going to be very thick, right? So we had his approval to kind of, this one, to condense it. Okay, and we especially use this more Theravadan form, okay, the early Buddhism form of the Buddha. So this is his book, okay, and it's really our tribute to him as well because he has worked with us very closely. And Essence of Buddhism, okay, I think you may have it, but I did not find it, okay. It's a mini book. I don't know how many of you have seen this one before. It's a very beautiful, cute little book. Even smaller than this, okay? If people are so used to having something this size in their hands, they might as well hold this book instead of a cell phone, okay? So the Essence of Buddhism is very, very simple. In a nutshell, all the basic concepts of Buddhism in a nutshell. And you can carry it with you, and it makes a beautiful gift, okay? So those are all the books that I talked about will be on the teachings, very clear basic teachings of Buddhism that we can all understand. Remember we talked about reader friendly, easy to understand. So this is what we're aiming at, all right? Art and poetry books, okay? Art and poetry books. And of course, we cannot go by without mentioning this book. This is what? Chanwa, Chanha, Chanat. So if you open this, you will find that it's all full color illustration of every story, a Chan story. It's a Kong'an. We have 100 of these, okay? 100 of these, and it's not by Chinese Chan master only. There are also Japanese Chan masters in there. And those are stories that inspire us and kind of just give us a thought. What? Why? You know? But if you think it's too deep, because some Kong'ans are very difficult to understand, you know, the Chan masters seems to be like little kids fighting, you know, whacking and hitting one another, or whacking a student, or scolding them, you know, for no good reason, you think. Master Hsing Yun gave us some explanation. Every Kong'an has a very brief explanation to tell us what is the focus of this, okay? And how many of you have been to the Buddha Museum in Foshan? 佛陀纪念馆. Good. And have you walked outside, you know, along the 风雨走廊, and you may see some of the Kong'ans there. And it's exactly the same painting, illustration is there, okay? So this is something you can consider if you are interested in Chan Kong'ans. In American culture, some book like this, so beautiful, so big, they call it a coffee table book. A coffee table book. But please don't just leave it on your coffee table. Read it, okay? But this is one beautiful book to have, and to gift actually, okay, to gift as well. And the next one, okay, I have to mention that we're very proud to win a gold medal for this. We can show you the award later on. After many autumns. Now we mentioned that in the complete works in Chuan Ji, okay, there are a lot of books by Master Xing Yun, whole sets of them, okay? And one of them, I'm sure any temple with a study group or study groups or study associations would have touched upon the books of what? 佛光教科书, right? 佛光教科书. So, there are how many volumes in 佛光教科书? Those textbooks. Anyone? Have you finished every volume? First of all, did you read every volume? There are what? 12. Is there any set here? Any set of 佛光教科书 here that we can? Oh, unfortunately, no. Oh yes. Oh, I'm sorry. It's here. Yeah. And actually, this, After Many Autumns, is a translation of the last volume. The last volume, 佛家文选, okay, all the writings. And here, okay, if you think that I don't understand those classical Chinese, it's very well translated. And what are these? These are gathas, verses. And on some of the masters, when they're enlightened, they write just maybe 4 lines to share what is that particular moment, okay? Or some of the more eminent monks over the centuries, over the dynasties, they write their mothers, okay? They write a letter to their mothers. They write a letter home. Or they may write their masters, or maybe they have to, even to the emperor, okay? To express their concern for the times. And a lot of beautiful poetry. And it's not just by monks, scholars, they're devout Buddhists, okay? They write about their realizations. Those are not that easy to understand in Chinese, really. But if you think you're interested, and if you read English well, this is a very good book, okay? And actually it's right here. So like I said, this is the only temple that I have all the real books to show, okay? It's thick, okay? And it's translated by an American, a professor up in California, a language professor. His wife is Taiwanese, so he has a very good support. So this is very beautiful, and of course we have to re-edit it. And if you look at temples and shrines, I'm sure you see what we call couplets, 对联. Xilai Temple, every couplet in Xilai Temple is in that, and also some of the very, very well-known old iconic Buddhist temples in China as well. So this is the book that was a very difficult book to do actually, okay? But yeah, we managed to get it out, all right? So art and poetry, all right? And of course, how can we not have sutras and commentaries? We would, recite the Heart Sutra, right? That's very elementary. And we read, and during service, all kinds of sutras, very well-known ones. Now, look at these two. What is this? The Platform Sutra. And who is the person on the Platform Sutra? Liu Zu. Who is Liu Zu? The sixth patriarch, Wei Nang. Chan school is the best known. Okay? And the title is so interesting. The rabbit's horn. Do you ever seen horn on a rabbit? Do rabbits have horn? No. So why would we call this rabbit's horn? Remember the very famous, one of the famous gathas in there? It's not just Puti Ben Wu Su. It's not just that one. What did he say? He said, if you want to seek enlightenment outside the world, you're looking for horns on a rabbit. That means that we have to practice and learn in the world, in the human world, with people, okay? So you visions outside the world, outside of humanity, okay? So if you're doing that, you're looking for rabbit's horn. So this is an excellent title, okay? We have to applaud the translation center for doing this, okay? I have to tell Venerable Yi Chao, okay? Venerable Yi Chao has been, so it's a huge task. So now, I'd like to share with you the Platform Sutra. Now, you would say all the sutras are spoken by the Buddha, right? But this is what? But sixth patriarch, Liu Zu. Liu Zhu. So you may say, why? Because it's such an enlightening piece. And actually in Chinese culture, if you look at Chinese history, of course, Chinese has a very long history and culture. And well, it was 2,000 years ago, Han Dynasty, when Buddhism first entered, right? Now, even the Han Dynasty, sometimes we refer to ourselves as Han, okay? Han Ren, okay? Or Tang Ren, 对不对? So Han, already that means that it's very well established. And anyone coming from outside, they call them what? Barbarians, okay? They only know how to ride a horse. They only know how to kill and conquer. They're uncivilized, that's why they're barbarians. But mind you, all these teachings from the West, the monks came from the West, and the West is what? India, the Middle East, Iraq, or even Afghanistan. Remember those two big statues that the Taliban blew up back then? So you know that's how Buddhism came in. All these monks are what they call foreign monks. Okay, they're all foreigners. Foreign monks coming from the West. They're very strange, but they had this very wonderful philosophy. Okay, and when they came, they translated and so on. And what happened? They recognized their teachings as Jing. In Chinese Buddhism, or in Chinese culture, sorry, what is Jing? What is the most famous Jing in Taoism? Tao Te Ching, right? Tao Te Ching. So when they accord the teachings and recognize this as Jing, that means it's a great respect and honor and recognition. Because the Chinese are very proud of their culture. They're very proud of their achievements. So when they say this is a Jing, that is a very special status. And so Liu Zhu Tan Jing. Now even within Buddhist teachings, okay, being called a Jing, it has its substance and it has its teachings that's worth being called Jing, all right? So this is Liu Zhu Tan Jing. And a lot of people will say that the words are very easy. The sixth patriarch never used any kind of very deep, difficult to understand words. But when you read all the simple, we don't quite know what he's talking about exactly, right? So Master Hsing Yun, again, commentaries, okay, a commentary. So chapter by chapter, Master Hsing Yun would tell us what actually was the sixth patriarch telling us. What was he talking about? Okay, so if you're interested in Liu Zhu Tan Jing, this is a book to get. And 10 Paths to Happiness. Now, anybody here who doesn't want happiness? Any one of us who is not interested in being happy? We all want to be happy, right? So there are 10 ways. The sutra on, a commentary on the Sumati Sutra. Okay. And again, this is a very, very popular one that people like. You can, if you say, I don't quite want to read all the 10 paths at once, you can read one by one, okay? And choose which one that you think is the easiest, okay? Next, wow. Oh. Anybody who has not heard of Pumenpin or the Universal Gate, never heard of it, never recited it, I'm sure here in this room, everybody would have known it. And of course at Foguangshan, we would recite this 光明灯法会, 对吧? Every new moon and full moon, right? So Pumenpin. Now Pumenpin is part of what? The Lotus Sutra. The Lotus Sutra. And who is the main character? Who is the main character? Huh? Be brave, come on. Yes, Guan Yin, okay, Guan Yin. Or Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva. Guan Yin Pusa. It's all about Guan Yin Pusa. Now, I always ask this question. Is Guan Yin a man or a woman? Because we were asked this question a lot of times, okay? They see Guan Yin, it's a beautiful lady. Oh, it must be a woman. But when you go to Japan and you look at the Guan Yin, whiskers, right? Mustache even, okay, they call it. So is Guan Yin a man or a woman? Anyone? And so what is the Pumenpin is about? Anyone? So it's just what? a skillful means. It's gender neutral, okay? All right? But I really have to raise this at every lecture, every opportunity. Now, if you Google Guan Yin, say English, Guan Yin Pusa, and sometimes you will see what? The goddess of mercy, right? I ask every group, there will be some people in this group who say, yes, yes, the goddess of mercy. Now, what do you think of this term? Is Guan Yin a goddess? It's beautiful manifestation. Songzi Guan Yin, Yulan Guan Yin, all the 32 or 33 or whatever different kinds of depiction of Guan Yin, they're all beautiful. Or a very supportive, caring figure. So is Guan Yin a goddess? No. Please. Guan Yin is not a goddess. Nowadays they call movie stars goddess, right? They call those famous singers, who is a goddess? Celine Dion or who else, right? Those are goddess. No, Guan Yin is not a goddess. And Guan Yin is a Pusa. Pusa is different. A Pusa is a Buddha to be. A Pusa has what? Great compassion and great wisdom. And what about the word mercy? Well, I went to a Catholic school in Hong Kong for 13 years. And for them, mercy is a common word. But is mercy a good word? Think of it. Mercy is like it's like from up there to down here. It's a little condescending. Now, if it's a goddess of mercy, but at the Ba Daling group 2 days ago, they say that, it can be a skillful means to receive people. So to kind of get them interested. Guan Yin, goddess of mercy, they may be interested to know more about a goddess, maybe, okay? So, but I say that please, if you ever have the opportunity, if you hear someone call Guan Yin the goddess of mercy, please correct him or her. Because it's more than that. Because mercy is like what? Giving, bestowing, like, it's from high to down. But Guan Yin with great compassion is what? You look at this word, pu, universal. It's all-embracing. It's equal. Okay? So it's a lot different than just granting mercy. Okay? It's helping our problems with great compassion and great wisdom. So you could read this, and I think 2 years ago I came and talked about the Lotus Sutra. And actually, because this is one of the chapters in the Lotus Sutra, Guan Yin, and so I also talked somewhat about this. Okay, so this is if you're still very curious, because a lot of us can recite or memorize. Okay, a lot of the more devout going to Dharma service, you don't need to look at the Kesongben. You don't need to look at a book. You can memorize, just from that. From the monastics leading you, right? You know the meaning? Okay, so it's important for us to know what's deeper inside. And again, Master would tell the story of Guan Yin. He say, someone asked him, well, I have seen a statue of a Guan Yin Pusa holding a string of beads. And the question was, so who is Guan Yin praying to? What do you think? And Master is a true chant master. He said, Guan Yin is praying to Guan Yin. So what is the meaning of that, please? Be your own Guan Yin. All right? Be a Guan Yin yourself. Help yourself and help your neighbors. There's a Guan Yin right next to you. Okay? Man or woman. Okay? It's gender neutral. Okay? So Guan Yin can be a man, can be a woman. Is neither a man or a woman. Because if you look at Pu Men Pin, I think it's, it's right here. If you look at Pu Men Pin, Guan Yin can be what? A king, a god, okay, a bhikkhu, bhikkhuni, right? Brahmin, even a child, a girl, a boy, some sort of celestial beings. A Guan Yin can be anything. And what is the purpose? Even can appear as a Buddha. And what is the purpose? The purpose is to help us, is to lead us to realizations, to enlightenment, to help us out of our suffering. Okay? So this is about Guan Yin and Pu Men Pin. And the next one, of course, Again, it's on bodhisattvas. 八大人觉经, okay, the great realizations. And if you look at this, okay, you don't look at 大人. Okay, 大人 is not just someone who is big and tall. 大人 is actually bodhisattva. 观音大士嘛, okay, so I'm sure this is all Chinese, of course. But if you look at this is on what? The 8 realizations of a bodhisattva sutra. So this is a book that you know what do bodhisattvas realize? Okay, what do they realize so that they are bodhisattvas and they're on their way to Buddhahood? All right, so this is one book to look at. Okay, so after all the sutras, let's look at some contemporary writings. Now, again, we mentioned that within the Chuanji, there's what the whole set is there. I think I saw it there. It's 迷悟之间, between ignorance and enlightenment. This one is 6. It's called Tending Life's Garden. Again, we want a small honor for this and recognition. And number 5 is called Let Go, Move On. Okay, Let Go, Move On is number 5. And we just reprinted it. And it just came out a couple of months ago. So many of these books, actually, quite a few of them are out of print. And we're working hard to catch up because we keep getting people asking for them. All right, so this is 迷悟之间. And you know how this happened? Remember the Maritimes? And in Chinese, when we first printed the Maritimes, every day Master would have an article on 迷悟之间. And it was a very, very popular. People would be that kind of asking, hey, what's in 迷悟之间 today? Okay, so this is why we have the English, because when we're doing the English pages, we have to kind of have something similar. It may not be exactly what's printed in Chinese, but we would have also one article every day. And it's interesting because all those articles are short, okay, easy to read, and it's extremely relevant. I'd like to share with you in my recent editing of Let Go, Move On. There's an article called Door to Door. And my editor, an American, said, he looked at the title and he said, oh, it's so interesting. You know, you look at it, you have no idea what is door to door about Buddhism. You know, how could Buddhism can connect with door to door? And you know what is the story? He said, this young man, of course now you're talking about almost 20 years ago, right? When the internet just came out and is not as fast and not as, buying a notebook may cost you thousands of dollars, but nowadays it's very, very cheap, right? So he said this young man went for an interview for a job. And actually he got the job. And so the interviewer asked him, okay, I will contact you, so do you have an email? Back then it's just email, right? Now today we have lots more. And the young man said, no, I don't have email. I only have door to door. So what is door to door? Anybody who are in sales, in the business of sales? And even today I don't think you go door to door, right, if you're in sales. But this young man, he said, okay, so he left. He left and of course he did not get a job. And what did he do? He had very, very little money left, so maybe, he really practices door to door. So he said he buys some potatoes, and he started knocking on people's door. And of course, in those days, you feel safe to open your door to a stranger, maybe not today, right? So he started making a little bit of money, and because of his passion, because of his enthusiasm, he became very rich. He became an entrepreneur. He was doing very well. And people come to him, okay, and said, oh, do you have an email? Can I contact you? And said, no, I don't have email. He still didn't have email. He still said, I only have door to door. So that was, and what was the lesson? The lesson actually is perseverance, right? Is that nowadays, not to speak of door to door, when people are sitting side by side, they don't even talk to one another, right? I've seen people sitting around a table eating. When the food comes, the camera will eat first, right? Okay, and then they put it down. And then they started eating, and then in the meantime, nobody's talking to anyone, and everybody's doing this. Okay, and so maybe sometimes grandma may be a little unhappy, right, and then started scolding, but maybe grandma is also into this, right? So is this good? No, we don't have human touch. I'm kind of slow with these kind of devices, and I remember some years ago, I could see it's definitely a couple or family waiting for, to board a plane. And they were sitting right next to each other, but they would not talk to one another. They would be talking on the phone. Okay, that was just talking on the phone. But nowadays it's more than that. It's just you keep doing this, right? And when I've seen some of our young people having a meeting, they were all sitting very tight, one next to one another around a little room. Nobody's talking to anyone. Everyone's doing this, okay? And they don't see anything but this. So I said, what are you guys doing? I said, oh, you're having a meeting, really? But they're not talking. They're not talking. They're just doing their own thing with this, okay? So, this is something to think about. Door to door, all right? And guess what? Master wrote that almost 20 years ago. You know what kind of foresight, right? And of course, we have Keys to Living Well. This is 2 volumes. So these are all very inspiring books, actually. And then you don't get tired reading them, because this one, it's maybe page and a half, sometimes even just 1 page, or maybe barely 2 pages long. So it really suits today's people's lifestyle and the pace that they work, all right? Okay, these two again are from 佛光教科书. This one for living beings, a guide to Buddhist practice. This is what we call 人间佛教戒定慧, okay? And this one, infinite compassion, endless wisdom, is 菩萨. See, we say a 菩萨, a bodhisattva should have what? Compassion and wisdom, okay? And this is 菩萨行证, okay, it's practice. So these two are almost like side by side, and this is, like I said, if you think that Chuan Ji is too many books, all Chinese, well, we translated some of them already, all right? And this one, these two, again, I put them side by side. I think, you see all the books are here. I put them side by side, and you see Endless Knots and Life. And actually, it's about what we call contemporary issues. Master had a series of lectures on contemporary issues. And this one is what? Master Seng Yun on living, dying, and learning. And this one is on what? Politics, human rights, and what the Buddha said about life. So all of these, sometimes we have friends and ask you your opinion. So what is the Buddha's opinion on suicide, let's say? Or what is the opinion on end of life issues? What is the opinion on politics? What Buddhists think? Okay, what is the Buddhist perspective? Master explained it very well here. Okay, so these are books that you can, and this is really what? Knots are what we are all bound by. Endless knots. So if we don't untie the knots, okay, we're never free. All right, so, I don't know if you see that video of the knitting lady, that she could never stop knitting. Remember that very cute animation? Don't you think it reminds you of this? So, we do think alike at times, So this is the attachments. Okay, another contemporary one. This is actually a very new book. I think it's over there. Yeah, this one. I think is. Yes, this little one. Yeah. So Embracing Nature. Embracing Nature came out in 2016. And this is the ecology from a Buddhist perspective. Now, Master talked about what? Environmental and spiritual preservation in the Ablia conference, right? And this is the whole interpretation of the Buddhist, what Buddhists think of every aspect of nature. It's from animals and from plants and trees, cosmology and all of that. And we won a gold medal again for this. And the judges were all non-Buddhists. They were not Buddhists. And they recognize that we say everything has a Buddha nature. They say this is a big picture. Because the Buddhist perspective of the ecology is actually what the big picture is about. And there are a lot of things about or the history of how Buddhists, from the Buddhist time and bodhisattvas or maybe eminent monks, how they preserve the environment, how they practice, helping and supporting the ecosystem. What is the practice? So remember, there's a bodhisattva who would walk very gently, who would not throw any garbage. Would it remind you that what we should be doing to reduce, reuse, recycle, right? And so if you want to let people know, we are very forward thinking. If we come to think of it, we are very, Buddhists or Buddhism are very forward thinking. The Buddha already had taught us what's the whole universe is about, okay? So this is one book that you can also refer to. This is another mini book called Inspiration. Inspiration is actually what we call humble table wise fare. It's 佛光菜根谭. Okay, now this is a book that many of us who would like to learn Chinese and English would really love to have, because one page is Chinese, another page is English, so it's like bilingual, all right? And it's of course a book of mottos, and of course it's inspiration. You can put it in your pocketbook, you can put it in your car, you can put it in your purse, and again, you know, this is something that you can read and read again, okay? Or say, oh, you know, I don't feel so good, or I'm stuck with something. You can read this book and you may find a way out, okay? 菜根谭. Reference and academic, all right? 法相. Now, 法相 is our little dictionary. But this is not by Master Xing Yun. You know this is by whom? 法相 is, I think it's down there. 法相 is by 慈庄法师. Okay, because she was one of the earliest disciples of Master, and in those days, you know, you have to copy and, you know, all the explanation, the meaning of certain terms. So she was known for beautiful, beautiful handwriting, and I think that's why she kept maybe notes on all these terms, and eventually we were able to compile this into Chinese 法相, but now we translated it. Okay, it took us 6 years, I think, to really translate and go through all of that. So this is Venerable Zhuang here, see? So this is like a mini encyclopedia of Buddhist terms, all right? And I think every one of our temples would have a copy in the library. Okay, 4 insights. And then you say, what? A big diamond on the cover? What is this? The Diamond Sutra. And you say, okay, now if my husband or boyfriend would buy me a big diamond, I would have fulfillment. No, no. So don't worry here, you know, all our gentlemen here. So this is actually about emptiness. The Diamond Sutra is about emptiness, right? So again, this sutra in Chinese is not a long one. It's just 5,000 some characters. Very simple, easy words, but do you understand? Do you understand what it means when it says that, a table is a table, it's not a table, but it's still a table? You know, something like that. Or the Dharma is not a Dharma, but it's still called the Dharma, and it is the Dharma. So what is this, right? So now, there are 4 insights. So Master is taking the 4 things, okay? Remember, there's no form of a self, right? No form of another, no form of sentient beings, no form of life. And so what's left? Everything is no. So what's left for us, right? Those are the insights. So Master has, so it's actually much more than a diamond, okay, no matter how big or small it is. So this is about actually nature of emptiness. So this is even stronger than a diamond, okay? And now, someone you will know. Who is this? It's from right here. You're a fellow Singaporean. You should be very proud of her. Venerable Jue, right? And I just saw her dad when I came from JB for lunch. Venerable Jue, this is her dissertation. She's a PhD, and she's just too humble. You could say Venerable Dr. Jue here, but well, she kept it as Venerable Jue. And it's parading the Buddha. And it's her dissertation, but don't worry, it's easy to read. It's easy to read. And look at all these illustrations. It's quite ancient, right? You look at all of these. And you know what it's about? For this particular directors meeting, one of the topics is localization, right? Localization. And you say, oh, it's just today's efforts. No, it's been localization has been going on for centuries. And it is about the Northern Wei, the emperor back then. Well, remember we talk about how these foreigners conquering pieces of land in China, they're all barbarians, right? But this one is very wise. He localized himself, okay? He localized himself. He was a Buddhist, and he actually made use of these Buddhist events to connect with his people. And one of them, a major event would be what? The Buddhist birthday. And mind you, the Buddhist birthday is the oldest birthday people celebrate in the world. Christmas is what? 2,000. 2,000 plus years, right? Common era. What is the Buddhist? More than 2,500 years. So this is the oldest birthday in the world that people still celebrate today. Okay, it's the Buddhist birthday. So why? Why parade the Buddha? How dare you parade the Buddha? No. What they did was what? Because in Luoyang, okay, Luoyang, I'm sure maybe you know that is an ancient capital in those days. And they were, well, Buddhism thrived, very, very popular, everybody was a Buddhist practically back then. And there are so many temples. They say thousands of temples, according to Luoyang Qielan Ji, okay? And this is where her dissertation is from. And every temple would bring out their own Buddha statue and put it on a big fancy carriage, okay? This is a small carriage maybe, okay? And they have incense offering, they have flowers, the monks will be circumambulating the Buddha statue and doing all kinds of celebration with songs and dance. And even the emperor himself would come out with his court to pay homage. So this is called how, she's saying, she's kind of harking back in those times. That's acculturation and localization. Okay, so this is a very interesting part of Buddhism, okay, in Chinese history. And of course, this is Venerable Jue, a Singaporean, okay? And another reference book is what we call bells, gongs, and of course it's not whistles, it's wooden fish. And if you look at this book, Wu Xingxi de Ge Chang, actually again it's one of the first books by Master, okay? That I remember he said that he wrote this on grass. No flat surface, remember there's no desk, no table, no nothing. So whenever he had something flat, he started writing all these things. And why? And why would he talk about all kinds of, or maybe it's no longer. You look at that, look at the cover of the book. There's a wooden fish, longhand shoes, an alms bowl, incense burner, a string of beads, and what? A rope, a monastic rope. So all these things are objects. All these things, they don't talk, but yet they talk. Wu Xingxi. It seems that inanimate objects, they don't teach, but they do. So what Master was doing, he was giving all these objects a voice. He explains that I am a wooden fish or I am a gong and what is my function. So people will understand because, well, with a big temple here as well, like with a big shrine, there may be a lot of visitors. People are curious. They come in, it's like a Xilai temple as well. They come in, they poke around, look around, and what is this? They all want to know why and what. Okay, what's behind this? What is the symbolism? What is the meaning? What do you do with this? Okay, the big wooden fish. When I take people into the main shrine, I would tell them the wooden fish can be this big, like in the big, like look at Singma Temple's wooden fish is huge. I wouldn't want to play that. I don't have the strength. It's really, really very difficult. And the size can be that big all the way down to what? A handheld wooden fish. But the function is the same, to keep temple. And if you see those old movies when they have like monks in a temple, every monk has a wooden fish and they go, clack, 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 clack. It's like a mess. Who can pray with that? So that's not the real thing, right? You only play one wooden fish. Have like 50 monks with 50 wooden fish. It's not a symphony orchestra, okay? So please, people who don't understand, this is the way to explain to them, okay? And now, oh wow, now this is a big deal. Buddha land in the human world. Now, many of you have been to the Foto Jinlianguan, right? The Buddha Museum. And you may have also read about all these, well, so-called recognition that the Buddha Museum is now a member of the, what we call the International Conference of Museum, ICOM. That means it's on the same par, same member as museums like what? Wugong Bowoguan, Metropolitan, the Great Britain Museum, and all of those big names, or even the Louvre, okay, in Paris. So this is a book on telling people what this is about. And I'd like to share with you is, I was at this, the International Book Fair at the Buddha Museum And because we translated into different languages, okay, actually we did it from Chinese. The original was Chinese, so we did English. And from English, we have Spanish and French and also Vietnamese. And I was at the display, you know, and there were a lot of people coming and going, and have this Vietnamese nun, I would say. And she was in a rush to leave, you know, the bus, they have certain times. She came to me and she only would speak Vietnamese, but I don't. I only speak English, Chinese, and Cantonese. That's my mother tongue, okay? And she was saying, and I said, goodness, what does she want? You know, how can I help her? She said, and finally, I think someone came with that, the book, okay? Oh, she wants this in Vietnamese. And I was so lucky to have just one copy in Vietnamese. And she was so happy. And she just, you know, she got it and then she ran to her bus. So this is how people would react, okay, to the Buddha Museum. And recently, I think it was just maybe 2 months ago, I'm not sure if you know about what the Huffington Post in America. Huffington Post is a very liberal media, okay, democratic. And I think one of the writers, he must be a Buddhist or he must be, you know, into spirituality and so on. And he shortlisted 5 places, what they call, you know, the bucket list. He said 5 Buddhist sites that you must visit in your lifetime. And this is one of them. And we were very surprised because we were very young. We're always the youngest. Okay, when they talk about Borobudur, when they talk about the Cambodian one, it's Angkor Wat, or I don't exactly remember what are the 4 because I was so excited that we were one of them. And Fo Guangshan and Buddha Museum. And if you even talk about Fo Guangshan, we're just 50 years old, okay? And that was opened in 2011. We're not even 6 years yet because we opened in December. So they considered us, and they would have this, you know, this is the photo on the news item, okay? And so 1 out of 5, we make the list. So please, make it on your list. Make sure you go. It's not that far from Singapore, okay? Make sure you go and visit, because even, you know, Westerners and foreigners are saying, hey, you know, go, and we have Fo Guang, you know, followers, so we must go and see, okay? Just a little commercial there. So these are all the books that people would refer to. And actually, you know, this book is all, again, some of our reference books are all in full color. So people can, and a lot of pictures as well. So they say a picture would tell 1,000 words, okay? Children's books, okay? So we have books for girls, okay? Books for boys. And because actually have someone asked me, you know, at a book fair, mom, and said, oh, it's pink, it's for girls, but I have boys. So people they don't care about gender. I said, oh yeah, no problem, I have a boys book, the 3 virtuous brothers. So, you know, you have to meet people's needs, okay? And that one, Little Panka, you know who's Little Panka? Zhou Li Pan Tuo Qie. So if you have a child or if you know someone who is not very smart, so to speak, a little slow, this is encouragement. Because the Buddha taught him, he could not even memorize 4 words maybe. He couldn't memorize a gatha. He almost got kicked out of the Sangha. But the Buddha had great compassion. So the Buddha taught him to sweep the ground, sweep the dust of his mind. And he became an arhat. So today there are a lot of people who are what? Who are autistic. Autism is very serious. They're not slow. They're just, you know, they're just kind of closed off. So this is very encouraging, all right? And manga. We have manga. Manga, okay, these are drawn by true artists, okay? We only translate the Chinese into English. So we have Bodhidharma, we have EQ, okay? And of course we have Master Hsing Yun. And these manga books sell very well. The Westerners love them. So we sell very well. And okay, we have English booklets. I'm sure every temple has it. Xiao Chong Su, right? Booklets. We have now, and these are all by the Translation Center. And I think they are now up to 80 something or 70 something. So it's quite a feat. Topic by topic, okay, it's quite a feat. And we talked about other languages, so it's not just English. because we need to have a good English translation for Western languages to be done. And that's like we have Portuguese, Spanish, and of course from the Chinese we have like Korean and Japanese. But I'd like to tell you it's not just these few languages. We have like about 20 some languages now. That includes like Hindi, Tamil, and recently we had a Swede translation of this book. Swede, 瑞典, okay. And also, of course, in Asia, it's not just Korean and Japanese. And I think they're doing even, okay, Vietnamese. Vietnamese is one of the big ones. And German, French, you know, and all of that. So we do have a good range. But of course, not every book is translated into every language. It has to suit the local needs. And the more popular ones are like basic Buddhisms or chant stories, or I think the Portuguese translation of the biography was done recently by Rulai Temple, okay, in Brazil, all right? So how much time do I have? It's to 9:30, right? Okay, so let me just show you two books that then we can finish off tomorrow, all right? And so we have two new books, and one is The Guiding Orchids, and you know this is by whom? 苏荣法师, 幽兰行者. Okay, so now this book is about what masters of reforms and innovation. And of course, those are all ancient masters. You're talking about Bai Zhang, you're talking about even Xuan Zhuang Fa Shi, all those great masters. But the contemporary master is what? Seng Yun Da Shi, okay? And he was truly the master of reform and innovation. So this is like a tribute to him, okay, on the 50th anniversary that we have an English book. And of course I mentioned Let Go, Move On. And I really love this. Now, how many people has done this? I'm sure most of us, okay? Now, if you arrive at your station, do you have to let go before you move on? Okay, so we do this like a matter of fact when we take a train, take a bus. But what about our life? Are there things that we cannot let go? Now, if you don't let go, you can never move on in your life. Okay, it's making progress in life. That's very important for us. Okay, so let me close with these books, and tomorrow we talk about our book fairs and our awards and also about education. How about that? So I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Those of you who came yesterday, I'm happy to see you again. That means you're still interested. And those who come here today, welcome. Again, I'm very happy to have the opportunity to share with you some aspects of Fo Guangshan's propagation of humanistic Buddhism, the Buddha's teachings. Yesterday, just to recap a little bit for those who just came for this afternoon, we talked about how, actually starting from the Buddhist time, when the Buddha was teaching orally, and nothing was recorded in his lifetime, and it was like after the Buddha passed away that his disciples started to compile and get things together in what we would today call hard copies, okay, hard copies of the teachings. And over the years, over the centuries that Buddhism was passed into China, and that was, of course, more than 2,000 years ago, that the Chinese, you know, they put everything in writing, okay? They want to record every word, like what the emperor said and so on. So we do have a wealth of the Buddha's teachings. And it was quite fortunate, I think, when you look back on it, that look in India, you know, how much Buddhism or how many Buddhists are still in the country. And if you look at other countries that once had Buddhism, we mentioned the Middle East, because a lot of the monks who came to China, they were not all so-called Indian monks. Most of them are like from the Middle East, from what we call as the Middle East. And in those days, they may call them Persians. And in the countries like Iran, Iraq, or even Afghanistan, Buddhism once thrived. But look at those countries today. Nothing. They blew up two, you know, large Buddha statues. They were heritage sites. And so you can see that without Buddhism or the teachings being transmitted into China and preserved, mostly preserved up to today, we wouldn't have anything. There would not be anything for us to refer to study, okay? So we have been really fortunate. So yesterday we covered that from China, after all the ups and downs, all the persecutions over the dynasty of Buddhism, Buddhists and temples and so on, we persevered. And even those, the most current persecution, I would say, would be the Cultural Revolution. The Cultural Revolution in the 60s. And I just now, I can maybe share with you as well. If any one of you, maybe some of the more senior Buddhists here know Mr. Yan Kuan-Ku from Hong Kong. He passed away a few years ago. I think he was 90 or 90 plus at that time. And he was the one actually who rescued a lot of the sutras from China. And how did he, during the Cultural Revolution, so how did it happen? Master Seng Yun said that because Mr. Yan was a small businessman, okay, and I think he was in some sort of printing or processing paper. And today we know that we also have a lot of recycled paper, right? So because he was a Buddhist, and what happened was he was buying paper or paper just being, shipped to Hong Kong from China. And among them, he discovered what? Dai Zhang Jing. He discovered a lot of those things that because of the Cultural Revolution, things were thrown out of the temple. Things were being destroyed, actually. But maybe it's just too many books and papers, so they just group it together and think that it may be worth some money. So they sold it to Hong Kong. And it was very fortunate that someone like Mr. Yan who recognized those are sutras, and he saved them. And so he actually established an office in Kowloon, I think, somewhere, to process all of these and to clean up and to preserve them. So we were very lucky for people like that, and we have the connections that the teachings could still be preserved. So we moved on, and Fo Guang Shan has starting to be internationalized, and Xilai Temple, for some of those who have been visiting there or just happen to have attending some events in Los Angeles, in Southern California, it's going to be 30 years next year. We opened in 1988, and that was the first ever branch temple for Guang Shan, our first major step in internationalizing and reaching out to the rest of the world. So, and from there, at Xilai Temple, we established the translation center and also the publishing, the Buddhist Light Publishing. Now we reorganize as what we call Buddhist Light Publications. And we see that we'll have a good number of books. Of course, this is not every book that we ever published. I introduced almost all of these books were on my slides, okay? And I know you want to have a copy later, so you can also refer to them. But of course, the thing is not just look at, how nice, the slides are, it's won some award. The key here is to read them, okay? Read them, study them, use them, all right? And we finished about all the books. We introduced most of the books last night. And we still have a little bit on publications that I'd like to share with everyone. So today we start off with book fairs and awards. And of course, I think in many countries, including Singapore, there are always book fairs, which is very good because that means that particular country or region or city is well developed culturally. Because when you have book fairs, that means people like to look at what's there, okay, what's there to read, what's there to improve myself with. We read, and then that's how we learn and how we improve. So we have book fairs and awards. And awards is like, when you compete or when you submit your books, and always, the local, usually is the local publication groups, they will assess your books, and then they would judge you with a gold, a silver, and a bronze, or at least an honorable mention if they think you're pretty good. So we did over the years we have won some of the awards. But let's look at the book fairs. The Festival of Books. Okay, the Festival of Books is almost a 20 years. I would say they say a tradition. Okay, it's a big event in April. That's held in Los Angeles and in the University of Southern California. And we always will be there as a weekend affair. And this is, one of the opportunities for Buddhism, okay, for the local community, because we are in Los Angeles. This is for the community to come and look at us, to come in, and then we can talk to the readers. So we have all kinds of people, because it's like almost like a family event that you can bring your children to, and it's open, on campus. And all kinds of people, you'll be surprised. Someone asked me, so are Westerners Buddhists? People would tend to think that only Asians, okay, or mainly maybe Chinese could be Buddhists. But anyone can be Buddhist. In Silai Temple, we had English Buddhism classes. We have a English subchapter. Okay, it's like you have an English subchapter, right? So it's the same thing. We have English subchapter. We have outreach. They're involved with different activities. So we do have so-called Native Americans. They're Buddhists, and from what I have heard in the classes much earlier on, people make this comment. They are mostly from Christian backgrounds, or they have no religion. Okay, they may have to go to church on Sundays with their parents, but as they grow up, they become kind of lost with Christianity or Catholicism. Look for their own faith or their own spirituality. So many of them are what we call spiritual seekers, and they would look at Buddhism for sure. So the comment was, why would you become a Buddhist, or why would you be interested in Buddhism? And for them it's very simple, it makes sense. That's the feedback, is Buddhism makes sense, okay? You know why? Because in Christianity, you cannot question God, right? You should not ask any question, you just believe. Just believe, okay? You believe and you survive, you live. 什么信的得救啊？对不对? Okay, so you see that everywhere, okay? So it's just belief. So for us, actually, that would be 迷信. That's blind faith, right? That's blind faith. But they really like what the Buddha said. Don't take my word for it. I mean, I'm just paraphrasing, okay? Don't take my word for it. Don't just accept what I taught. Prove to yourself. Prove to yourself. And you can always ask questions. If you look at the sutras, a lot of them are like dialogues, right? Look at the Diamond Sutra. Okay, look at, what's the other one? The Lotus Sutra. There are a lot of dialogues, okay? And someone would ask a question so that the Buddha can start talking, okay? So ask questions is good, because the Buddha welcomes questions, and Buddhism does not fear questions, okay? And in Chan, they say, it's like tolling a bell, okay? You toll slightly, you have only very small enlightenment. You toll loudly, you could have a bigger one, a larger one. So it's good to ask questions. But so that for them, okay, for the Western mind especially, they like to ask questions, okay? Children are encouraged to think for themselves, to think independently, to be creative, okay, to explore. So that's why, Buddhism makes sense to a lot of people, and maybe even they say Einstein, before he passed away, the few years before he passed away, he even said that if I'm going to choose a religion, I think I'll take Buddhism. So it's also very scientific. But don't equate Buddhism with science, Okay, that would not be quite, you know, exact. Okay, but it is very scientific because it makes sense. Okay, it's logical, shall I say? All right, back to the book fairs. So you can see that, you know, I'm just taking a few pictures because oftentimes it's hard to take a picture of people looking at books like this, you know, and you cannot just show the backs. Okay, so we have a few pictures of these, and besides this one, and then one that we will be going to every year. It's what we call Book Expo America and what they call Book Con. I'm sure you have something similar in Singapore as well, right? That for the first couple of days, it's like within the industry. It's the publisher, the distributors, and anyone related to this printing, publishing business, okay? And the last 2 days will be called what we call the Book Con. Book Con is like when they open to the public, they can buy a ticket or some sort of admission fee. They come in and they can buy books or get freebies. You know, that's what people love, is to get free stuff, and or get the authors to sign the books. Okay, so we were there. I just want to show you the recent 3 years, and you will notice that New York is kind of the base. Okay, because most of the publishers, publishing houses, or distributors, or they're mostly around New York. They're on the East Coast. So one time we ventured into Chicago. Okay, we were in Chicago last year. And so just to show you some of the pictures, we have a very small booth only. It's only 10 by 10, and because it's very expensive, we cannot afford anything too much. It's very expensive, and of course we will have to fly from Los Angeles to New York. So you know, you could see Western faces. I'm not particularly choosing Western faces because there I would say that 99%. Okay, maybe yeah, there are some exhibitors from China or from other countries going there that could be Asian, but most of them looking around, visiting, they are almost like non-Asians, okay? And of course, this is when we're selling books in New York, and we're kind of loose spread out. And this is Chicago. This is when we were in Chicago. And it was very interesting, okay? People coming to the book fairs, initially, when we were starting out in the early 2000s, and we thought that maybe we should join the religious group. Big mistake, because we were all Christians. They look at a Buddhist, they look at me and they just look away, you know. Or, you know, I'm the devil. I'm the devil in person, okay. They just stare at me, okay, very unfriendly. They, of course, wouldn't talk to me. And I remember that time it was, we have a huge poster of Master's book. Let me see if it's here. It's not here. The one called Tending Life's Garden that I talked about, so it's Master Hsing Yun there, so it's a big poster. They could see very far away, you know, a Buddhist monk. And they were stunned, okay. They don't like us to be there, okay. And the only non-Christian is us. And another poor soul is a Muslim. They were giving away Qurans, right? So we were the non-Christian, and they were not happy. They were not happy. So we learned our lesson as well. So we moved out of the religious aisle, okay. But we were in New York. Imagine, okay. They were not people. Even today, I think some of them are a little wary of us. But I would say that after I was there in 2005 to 2007, okay, and then I took up the temple's work, and I'm no longer involved with Translation Center and the publishing. And then I went back, okay, I went back in 2015. But the good news is after 10 years, and of course there were no longer any religious aisle or region or zone, people are a lot more friendly. People are very friendly. They look at me, at least they smile at me first, or they can, you know, make eye contact, you know, okay, this is not the devil. And you should see them, okay? And also they even come over to talk to me, okay? And I have people very polite coming up and say, obviously he's not Buddhist. And say, I don't know anything about Buddhism. Can you tell me something about it? Or, you know, they would nod at you or whatever. And because I'm the only walking, living monk, so to speak, in the whole exhibition. Nobody else. All right? And nowadays it's almost always I'm the only Buddhist. We're the only Buddhist exhibitor. We're the only Buddhist publisher in those events. And it was funny, 2 times. Last year in Chicago and this year in New York. You know, last year was funnier because this African American woman, I was just sitting there, you know, and she just walked past, and all of a sudden she moved back and looked at me and said, I've read it in books, but you are the first monk I've ever seen in person. Can I shake your hand? So we are a novelty, okay? We're a novelty at such events because they don't expect to see a real, you know, monk, okay? They are walking and actually, you know, I can talk. And this year too, this year is funny too. I didn't expect it to happen in New York, but this year in New York, it's a father and a son, and again, it's an African American person, I think, is a man of color. Again, he came over, oh, you know, I've never seen a monk before, can I shake your hand? Now I'm getting used to it. I'm getting used to it. It's really funny. I think it's really funny. So those volunteers working with me at the booth would say, Sifu, you see, you just sit here and it's good for them so they can see you. Because they never seen anything like this. Okay? So just to show how hard it is, okay, we still have a lot of work to do, okay. So even in a city like New York, okay, it's very, very, very diverse. But people going to those events, they do not expect a Buddhist monk. And it's also funny that when we walk around, you know, people will look at us, and some are nice, okay, some are just, you know, it's a strange person, you know, it just avoid you, okay. And we do have American Buddhists actually coming into our booth, and I think here's one of them. He would say, oh, I only spend money here, okay, I don't buy anything else, okay. If I ever spend money, I only spend money on, you know, with the Buddhist books. Or he would say that, oh, coming in here is so nice. We're just a little 10 by 10, remember. Oh, the energy here is so good. And I thought, what energy are you talking about? You know, we cannot light incense, you know, not in those places. You know, we don't have anything. But outside at Festival of Books, we do. And people come in, and that's honestly like very nice because you can smell the incense, okay? But in indoor, in the exhibition halls and those, we cannot light any incense. So it's actually quite nice, okay? So far the experience is quite nice. So you actually meet the readers. And there's even one lady coming over and point to this book, okay? It's a total stranger. She was just zipping in and out. Oh, I have this book, that's a good one. And then she left. So for us it's very heartwarming because, you know, what we put out, and it is a reader. And they got it from Amazon most likely, okay? So we kind of had our little account with Amazon as well. So those are things that could happen, you know, when we reach out, 走出去. That's what Master said. We have to reach out. We have to show people, okay? And I'd like to let you know this is the translator. Okay, he's a graduate. He was at University of the West for a chaplaincy program. Jason Greenberger. He's the one who translated Meditation and Wisdom. Now let's see, where is it? Oh, this one, yes. Okay, this is the book. Okay, this is Ding He Sang, Most Venerable Sin Ding's book. Okay, and we got a gold medal for that, so I can show you later on. So he's the one. Okay, he's very good in Chinese. He could speak Chinese to me. He's now living outside Chicago with his wife. His wife's Chinese, and they had a little baby. So, and he's currently working on the next book by Ding He Sang. Okay, Xin Ding Zizai. He's working on that. So we hope to get it out soon enough. All right. So more of these. I think we're back in New York. And BookCon. Okay, buy one get one free. All right. So we have to do a little promotion. And like I said, we're being a company, being registered as a company. You know, we have to be for profit. And so we hope to recoup some of the very high costs to go out. So, but of course, the whole purpose is to spread, is to share. All right, is to hope that how people can read those books. So what we do here is we give them discounts for some of the more newer regular books, and then we give them a choice of a free book from what we have. Okay, some of the older. Mostly the local temple, like the New York temple or the Chicago temple, will support us. We provide books that people can choose from. All right, and let's look at some of the awards. Okay, because when go to book fairs or annual events, there will always be those so-called competition. Okay, and we submitted the books and see kind of test the water and see how well received Buddhist books can be. Handing down the light, and I'm sure you know that, Chuan Tang, okay, we got the award for just an honorable mention, but still, okay, it's quite an encouragement. Of course, way back then it's called biography. And again, Tending Life's Garden, that is between ignorance and enlightenment. Also, we have an honorable mention, and it's under religion. And this beautiful book, Chan Ha Chan Ha, we won a gold. And it was very funny. It's called religious fiction. Those are kongans, okay? They consider you stories. Stories are all fiction, okay? Because they have no idea what you're talking about. But it's a beautiful book. But it's a truly beautiful. So all those stories, they would consider them stories to inspire, maybe. So it is religious fiction, all right? And let's look at this book, okay? Sakyamuni Buddha, the biography, of course. We received a bronze. And look at what we did, okay? That was back in 2015. At Sila Temple, we mentioned interfaith dialogue, right? Interfaith. Sila Temple has been an active member of the local Buddhist Catholic dialogue, okay? And we're very involved. We have meetings every month, and we have like rotate, okay, we rotate from Buddhist, Catholic, or during the year, we have different groups, and it's a very long tradition. The Buddhist Catholic dialogue started in 1989, I believe, okay, so we've become quite active in the last maybe 15 years, okay, and Venerable Wei Chuan actually, when he first became the abbot back in 2001, the priest in charge of this dialogue arranged for Venerable Wei Chuan to meet with the then Archbishop, okay? Because Los Angeles is a big place, they have a local archdiocese. And why did we go 2 years ago? It's because if you have heard of the Vatican Council, the Vatican Council by John, I think it was John Paul XXIII, 50 years ago. Okay, it was 50 years ago that the Vatican Council, they had like a very long-running council, and one of the resolution is they recognize what other religions practice and believe in, as long as what they consider what is ethical, moral, what they call the truth. Okay, so they recognize that, and because in 2015, it was the 50th anniversary of that particular council and that proclamation that the Pope made, okay? And so what did they do is they invited the local, I tell you, they're very smart. With interfaith, they have more faith in Buddhists, okay? They consider us safe. So what they did is they have a special conference. It's a Buddhist Catholic dialogue. It's like an interfaith conference held at the Vatican. And we did not stay at the Vatican in a way. We stayed outside Rome, what they call the place called Castel Gondolvo. I don't know if any one of you have been to the Vatican or to Rome for a visit, and you may have the chance to visit there. So we went there, we stayed there for about a week, and we had exchanges, dialogues. We would have like every morning, we would first have a meditation by different traditions, the Buddhist traditions, and then we would celebrate Mass, and we would go into the chapel and we would sit with them. They would have a Mass, and again, it's different traditions. And then they have a theme, so we present papers, and I presented like a little presentation as well. So this is what we did. And one day, okay, they said we're supposed to go and meet the Pope. And they would take us out on a bus, every one of us. But before that, the news was, the room is very small. We cannot have all of us going. Maybe one group will send one representative. And we were notified actually that we should bring gifts. So you could see this is one gift, this is another, this is a little blurry. This is a 佛手, a 琉璃佛手, very elegant with a lotus. And this is what I gave him. Okay, so then it's funny, you know, how they organize things as well. You know, and then the next day, we have a big room now. Everyone can go. So we're very happy. And it's not just us, because the place that we're staying in, we're served by volunteers and maybe staff, and they all went. Okay, everybody was very happy, so that we all went. The big bus of about maybe 50 people, and so we all went, and it was a long walk, I tell you. You have to wear good shoes in Rome. Very long walk. They would just dump you, you know, I would really say dump. They just, everybody get off underground bus depot, and then you have to walk and walk and walk all night. And of course, we don't know where we're going. We just follow, because no one can get lost. Because you don't speak the language. They only speak Italian. Don't count on your English, okay? It's mostly Italian. So we went there, and he was very gracious. He came in, and the whole thing lasted maybe, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. He just came in, and it's all Buddhist one side, and Catholic the other side, and everybody, of course, we had to put on our best robes, and he made a point to shake his hand with everyone. Okay, and of course, you know, we had a group photo and so on. So this is the gift. This is the gift that I gave to Pope Francis. He's a very, I would say that he's a very good Pope so far, and he's very compassionate, and he's humble. And he actually came from the church in Argentina. And he actually met us, some of us. He met our, I don't remember, is it Miao Zhong, or is that Miao Zhong Fa Si? It's not, not Miao Zhong from San Francisco, it's Miao Zhong from Zhonghua Zhonghui. I think she was there at one point, and again, when he was the bishop there, or archbishop there, he also had interfaith. So we did have several times, like Venerable Zhepei, Venerable Manqian, and of course Master himself met with the last two popes. Okay, so we do have a lot of exchanges with other faith groups in every part. So maybe we can have a discussion after that. All right. So this is a bronze, and okay, this one, meditation wisdom. We had a gold medal, and this is meditation and relaxation. Okay, and this, where is the way? Okay, this book I would say this is a very good reference book, but this is not by publications. This is not by BLP. This is by Fo Guangshan International Translation Center. So it is their book. We mentioned last night that actually we published about 100 or over 100 titles, and some of them are out of print. And so what we did is like we kind of re-edited and recompiled the books, and this is one of them. It's like a combination of Blueprint for Life and some other smaller earlier publications that we had by Master Hsing Yun. So this is a very good book to get. I'm not sure if I'm sure you have it. I think you have it. You can check out. Okay, so this is a book, and again we had a gold medal, and so now this time they call it spiritual leadership. Okay, so that's a better category. Embracing nature. I mentioned a lot about embracing nature. This is our most recent book. Of course, environmental preservation is a very, very hot topic in today's time all around the world. You can see everywhere at our temple. Of course, Singapore is no exception, is to remind people to use less, to preserve water. Singapore is very successful in recycling water, right? Extremely successful, that you can actually market your technology to other countries. So this is one big step. So in this book you will see the Buddhist perspective, how Master Hsing Yun could analyze, and also let people know that Buddhists had a long history of helping and preserving the environment. So this is a very good book if you're interested, or to show your friends. Okay? And of course I say that all these books, I'm here to share with you. So I share with you and hope that you can make use of our books, and not just to buy them or just put them on a shelf. And like I was saying yesterday, this is a book that the Americans would call the coffee table book. But don't leave it on your coffee table, okay? It's not for decoration, it's for reading, okay? So I hope that, I'm kind of recapping last night and sharing, some of the awards and other activities about our publishing efforts with you. And of course I welcome later on, maybe I leave about 10 minutes for questions, okay? So now we have to move on to the next part of what we should be going through as educational undertakings to foster talents. I'm sure we all recognize the importance of education. Without education, there will be no progress. There will be no hope for the future. So it is as important for Buddhists, whether you are a monastic order or the laity, okay? So the whole Sangha, because when we talk about the Sangha, it's not just about us. The Sangha includes all of you, okay? So during the Buddhist time, of course, there were no so-called Buddhist college, but there were, the Sangha would be learning from the Buddha every day and learning from their elders. And over time, in history, as it passed on to different countries, different traditions, they all have what we call Buddhist college. So of course they're the exact same thing as the Christian seminaries, so those are equal. And with Buddhist colleges or special classes, the aim is not just for educating or training of monks and nuns. It's also for the laity. So for Guangshan, one of our mission, okay, our objectives is to foster talent, okay, through education. And when we're looking back at history, so we were touching on the history of the Chinese Buddhism. So when we look back at the history, there were many people, Buddhists have misconceptions of what? That we're superstitious. Buddhism is for senior people, it's for little old ladies, it's for people who are illiterate. But it's, I have to maybe talk a little bit of that on illiteracy. Maybe you have one at home as well. It's like grandma. Grandma never had school, okay? Grandma never really can really read too well, but somehow grandma can memorize and recite the entire Amitabha Sutra. But when you show her this is Amitabha Sutra, she could not read it. Isn't it pretty amazing? And same thing with the Diamond Sutra. Because we have heard actual stories of people telling us that's what grandma is like. Because grandma is basically illiterate, but grandma could memorize Amitabha Sutra. Or at least the Heart Sutra is like, oh, very easy, right? So that's pretty amazing as well. But if you look at the whole development of Chinese Buddhism, of course, there are many stages. And we're kind of focusing on the late Qing dynasty and the early republic, okay? Early republic eras. And it was, of course, a very, very difficult time. After the war, after World War II, everything was in shambles. And the government was kind of weak, of course, because it's a new republic, and they barely survived the World War II. So what they did is, they were looking, they also recognized, okay, some of the more eminent officials or so-called leaders, they also recognized that we need to teach people, we need to educate them, because most of the people back then were illiterate. Most of the people had no education. So, and they have no facilities, right? They have no facilities. So sometimes what they are looking for what? They look to temples, or maybe even churches. they look to like just annex and grab, all the properties and use the existing facility. So Singma Temple is like a school, right? So if you kind of fast forward here, now we recognize that it's really necessary. Even here in Singapore, you're registering for the kids, right? And we have our own daycare or kindergarten, right? So just to show you from the ancient times all the way up to today, education, a school facility, okay, and so on, are so important, okay, for educating, teaching the generation and the generations to come. So let's look at what we call rise of Buddhist affiliated educational undertakings in the post-Republic of China. So there's mainly about before and after World War II, during those times, okay? And I'd like to highlight this special master, Master Tai Xu, okay, Tai Xu Da Si. Because during those times, I mentioned yesterday that Buddhism has become what? A religion for dead people, or they call religion for the dead. It's like when somebody died, go to a temple and ask for a monk and chant or do a funeral service for grandma, grandpa, or whoever, all right? Other than that, they don't want to go inside a temple, or they want to seek, they want to pray, or they want something, then they may see, I offer incense, 去抱抱佛脚嘛, right? Just to seek help, all right? However, this is not what Buddhism is about. So Buddhism was in very bad shape, should I say, okay? Very traditional, conservative, even almost corrupt, okay? Because when you go to chanting, you go to services, this is how you receive hongbao, right? Or for those very educated, very so-called intellectual monks, they're almost like the elite, okay? Then they would talk about sutras, but in a very profound way that nobody could understand, okay? It's too extreme that they're either very, very high level, okay, academia, or they're very basic superstition, okay? So how could the community connect with you? Because there would not be any kind of, everyone in between, okay? That Buddhism has nothing to do with me, okay? But now, we have Master Tai Xu at that time, and he recognized the problems. So he proposed 3 major Buddhist reforms. First of all, reform of Buddhist asset management, property, again it's property, or even money, or donations, right? Second, reform of Buddhist systems, so how things work actually within the Sangha, and especially how it can serve its community. Reform of Buddhist teachings and how we can make it accessible and easy to understand. Maybe I'm sure you've heard of the story Master would tell us. And he said, he would ask people attending some special lectures and people would say, oh yes, very good, it's very good. So what did he say? I don't know. I don't understand. Okay. Or even Venerable Yin Guang, maybe you also read about the story, Master Yin Guang. Master Yin Guang had a 3-day lecture. The first day, it's so full, okay, no seats available. Second day, only half of the people were gone. The third day, even less. So his conclusion is, because he's got such a big reputation, people were curious. Now who is he? It's like looking at the movie star, right? A big celebrity. So they went and see, and in his words, say, 看看我没有3头6臂，看看我是什么，到底这个印光大师是什么人，对不对？ Just curious. Oh, so he's just a monk. Oh, and maybe they're not too interested in what he was saying. So half were gone, right? And the next day, even less. So I'm happy that you're all here today, after last night. Okay, so you can see that it's so important if you want to provide the teachings we always mention relevant to life, accessible, easy to read, easy to understand, okay? So he had the foresight. This is Master Tai Xu, he has a foresight. And actually, Master Xing Yun learned from him. He was Master Hsing Yun attended some classes by Master Tai Hsu. And he openly said that Master Tai Hsu was his idol. He was someone, Master Hsing Yun was a very young monk, maybe not quite even 20 years old, or maybe just over 20 years old. And he looked for leadership. He was looking for leadership. So he put out a lot of good ideas, reforms. And actually what Master Tai Hsu was advocating is an early form of humanistic Buddhism. And back then they call it 人生佛教, or kind of what we call living Buddhism, or engaged. Nowadays they use engaged, right? So that means that you practice it, you use it, okay? And so, and look at what he also did to promote the globalization of Buddhism. Today is the same as what, well, we talk the same, like globalization, internationalization. He founded the World Buddhist Study Center in Wuchang, okay, and offer Buddhist studies courses in Sanskrit, Fanwen, Chinese, Pali, and Tibetan. And of course, you consider the time they had no English. So it's like going back to the original text. And of course, Tibetan is one of the few languages that some of the Buddhist texts are translated into as well. And he also dispatched monastics to study abroad. Now, this is something new, right? In Japan, Tibet, India, and Sri Lanka. So all these are considered, of course, Buddhist countries. So it's very forward-thinking. I mean, you're talking about what? The 1940s, before, after, or maybe shortly after World War II. It's extremely forward-thinking. But unfortunately, he did not have the opportunity, okay, to fulfill his vision. But we were kind of a little lucky in this sense. Mr. Chiang Kai-shek, okay, of course he was the president, okay. He kind of won World War II together with the rest of the superpowers at that time. He was a friend, or actually a good friend of Master Tai Hsu. And I mentioned earlier on that because they don't have buildings to use as school, they're looking at the temples. Because if you've ever been to China, you see there are many, many temples. And temples are big, okay? They kind of occupy large land. So those are like, wow, you know, beautiful places to be schools as well, right? So some of the government actually had annexed or just grabbed the temples and they kicked out the monastics, or like I said, they may even burn the sutras or just dump it. So Chiang Kai-shek actually, he makes some orders, okay? So on government annexing Buddhist temple properties for conversion into schools, he issued some orders and he said, righteously practicing Buddhist monastics are to be protected, right? Educated intellectual monastics are to be spared. That means that you are a practicing monk, you're really a monk, you teach, you share, and you're not just there for free accommodation. And I'm sure that there are a lot of fake monks today even. I think here maybe in Singapore, you have like hot tourist places. Do you have fake monks there handing out things and asking for donations? That's in New York, yeah, Hong Kong, and I happened to be in Boston in June, and we were going to just walking around some of those so-called downtown places, and in a market, a very popular so-called public market, we saw a sign, a permanent sign, mind you. It's not just a little piece of board, a permanent sign with color photos of those monks. These are fake monks. Don't give them money. It's a shame, actually. It's a shame because they're like beggars. They're thugs, basically. Okay, and in New York, I personally I saw them. Of course, we ignore them. They all have their territories, by the way. Okay, and 2 years ago, it was the first time I went back since a few years. I was with I think 2 volunteers took me and another monastic from Silai Temple, and we were at the 9/11 area. Yeah, you know that area. And we was kind of walking around by ourselves, and all of a sudden, this African American men, they have a lot of street vendors. They just make a living by selling maps or whatever. And he approached me, "You like a donation?" And I was shocked because I never had that kind of experience walking on the street and someone said, "Do you want a donation?" I said, "No." I thought something was wrong with him, but no, he was very friendly. "Oh, it's okay. I can give you a donation." I said, No. I mean, I'm not asking for money on the street, my goodness. So I said, "Oh, yes, okay." So I walked away. I did not quite understand at that moment. So later on I realized because those fake monks are like regulars, both men and women. They're regulars, and they look awful, of course. They would just have a bag across and they walk everywhere. And we have our volunteers telling us, if you don't give them money, and if they would actually curse you and chase after you. Is that how bad it is? That's why they're thugs, okay? So it's really bad, and I don't know what the government's doing, the local government. Of course, New York is so free spirit, should I say, nobody cares. But people who have seen them, and they walk everywhere. We were just doing like maybe a little walkabout, and you see maybe one here, and then you will see another one. They have their routes and rounds. So I think the same thing here as well, right? There may be some of them, but some of or even Toronto, but I think some governments, I don't know what Singapore would do, but some government, if they see that, they recognize that, and some of the Buddhist temples even would like make announcements and tell people don't do anything, don't have any contact with them because they're fake monks. So here you can see that back then, righteously practicing Buddhists, right? So we are fully ordained. We are real monks. We teach. We uphold the precepts. So that is something else. Okay. So of course in China, after the Cultural Revolution, they started to recognize that temples are hot tourist spots. So they have like monks who would have a day job as monks, and then they go home. They have a family. Okay, and then they put on the jeans and T-shirts after the end of the day. Okay, so, but I think over the years, I think even now the local, the Chinese government actually, they have a 宗教局, they have a religious bureau, and they have control. So they also have a Buddhist college, but still, it's a big gap. That's why if you read what Fo Guangshan has, our BOIA annual journal, okay, there will be records of Master going to different temples. And the senior monks, those who had persevered, those who had stayed, they were so grateful. So they asked Master to go. And Master will always tell those young monks at the Buddhist colleges, please study and uphold the precepts. Okay, so that would be key because it's a huge vacuum. And of course, it's not just the monks. We could realize that there are a lot of other gaps, in society. Because like having just one child at home, okay, they call them little kings, right? So, or little princess, and because they have grandparents and moms and dads, it's just this little one, and so they're very spoiled. They're very spoiled. So, education is not just for us. Education actually is for everyone. It's for the whole community. It's really critical, okay? And you look at what he said. So he said temple grounds are to remain solemn and pure. Okay, that's very important. Sangha grounds, all right? Temple grounds. Illegitimate monastics or Buddhists are not to be permitted. Let's look at this. No fake monks, right? From posts such as abbots or managers of a temple. 你住持当家了啊，主管了 okay? In addition, any Buddhist undertaking that is of benefit to social welfare is to be safeguarded. So this is what Chiang Kai-shek back then, that he recognized the value of Buddhists, of monasteries, of Buddhist monastics, and what we do and what we teach. So that is a good thing. However, it did not last. In the book, you see that because his last, and maybe, I don't know how many wives he had eventually, because the last one who survived was Song Meiling, right? Song Meiling was a Christian. So he had to he had to bow to his wife's religion. And then it became quite difficult. It became quite difficult. But we are fortunate that we still survived in China and in Taiwan. When Master started out, you remember those stories that the police will come and say, you cannot talk here, you cannot talk here. You know, there's a big group there talking. And you have to shut this down because of the Christian hand behind, that they don't allow Buddhism to spread. Okay, that was back in Taiwan. And then Master had a beautiful reply. I dare not stop them. You go and tell those people to disperse. And even the police dare not do it. Okay, so when people are seeking right teachings, when people are seeking the Dharma, okay, that's a very strong force. As you can see that some of these are all, this is maybe a little blurry. This is Qi Sha Hu Sha. Okay, so many of those are preserved. And because we always have some visiting groups from China, and we have the opportunity to ask them. So I say, oh, you know, a lot of temples are being revived. A lot of temples, they say, actually the money would be spent on the famous ones. So the little community temple, nobody really knows so well, they ignore it after the Cultural Revolution. So, but it's lucky that some of the major ones, the better known ones, they were preserved, or actually are repaired and revived. Or some, if you've been to Dajie, Dajie was actually completely destroyed. But we were allowed to rebuild, you know, Zhuting, Boguangshan, Xingyun Dashi Zhuting, the ancestral monastery. And so you can see that this is what Jiaoshan Foshe Yuan, this is one of the oldest Buddhist colleges, and this is where Master went to. So some of the teaching staff, some of these old photos. So, this is a very interesting point for Master Hsing Yun in his life, because he was given the position as a principal of Baita Primary School in Yixing. And this is actually right next to Dajie. You remember seeing that white tower? Very beautiful, lit up tower. That's in commemoration of Baita. And Baita Xiaoxue once existed, okay? And it was like right very shortly after the war, because the Japanese surrendered. So Master Hsing Yun was able to be moved back to Yixing and was appointed as the principal of the school there, even though for a short time, okay? Unfortunately, so I have this in black, because unfortunately Master Taixu passed away in 1947. He wasn't even 60 years old, so he lived quite a short life. And so his vision, his ambition, maybe you could say, his vows and wishes could not be realized. So he had the foresight. He had a very far-reaching vision, but he did not live long enough to see them fulfilled. Okay, and then I'd like to introduce another very eminent monk, Cihang Pusa, we call him. Maybe those of you who have been to Taiwan, 他是那个肉身不坏, so his body was preserved. When he passed away, he said, and his body was preserved. And the tradition is to be, the body is put in a big urn, a big urn, and after some years they will open the urn and to check if it's still preserved. So he was preserved. And again, I like to highlight these two masters, is because Master Hsing Yun learned from both of them. And Venerable Master Cihang was very, very kind to Master Hsing Yun. He took very good care of him and make sure that he had the support that he could give. So, Cihang Fa Si, or they call him Cihang Pusa actually, he was invited, he came back from Southeast Asia, it's like maybe in this region, to go back to Taiwan to establish what they call the Taiwan Buddhist College in 1948. Look at all these years. This is right between what? World War II finished and the Civil War. It was the time of the Civil War, because in 1949 the communists took over. The communists won, and the nationalists moved to Taiwan. So those are very, very hard years. If you read Chinese history, those are very, very tough times for the Chinese people, all right? So this is a photo. I mean, you can see, sometimes you can observe a face. It's a very kind, compassionate face, okay, of a monk. So the next stage, let's move a little bit forward. Okay, after the communists took over, there was what they call the Sangha rescue team. And what they did was, because at that time, they all recognized that communists, at least communists in those times, they had no religion. Okay, they destroy all religion. They don't want religion. So what they did was what? They would really just kill you if you're a monk, or just burn your place down, burn everything, destroy everything. And so they recognized this imminent danger. So a lot of the monks in the big temples, they all decided to bring the Dharma out. This is the only way to preserve. And they did it right, because in the following century, following decade or so, there's another cultural revolution, right? So they were right in coming out. So they came out, and in 1949 and 50, during those times, Master came out. If you read Quan Dang, you will know the story. So he went to Ilan from 1953. This is some 60 years ago. So even you say that, oh, Fo Guangshan is only 50 years old, but look at the years. It took Master Hsing Yun all this time, okay, it's more than 10 years since he left China for Taiwan and settled there, and it was Ilan. So look at this, look at what he did even back in the 50s, okay? The Dharma propagation team, the Buddhist youth choir, a youth group, okay, children's classes, and Sunday classes, they were all established. Now don't these look very familiar to you? Because we're doing exactly the same thing. We may be doing it in a different way. We're doing a bit more diverse, more so-called contemporary, digital, okay, and multimedia, right? So this is what he did. And look at who he recruited. Okay, Venerable Xin Ping, Ping Hesang. Some of you may not know him. Okay, he passed away in 1995. Ci Wei, Ci Rong, Ci Jia, and who is Xiao Bisha? Xiao Bisha is Xiao Shigu, okay? Okay, and I asked that day, do you remember how old Venerable Ci Rong is now? She told everyone on stage. Huh? 82. She's 82 now, but back then in the 50s, okay, she was a young Buddhist, okay, and she would always tell the story. When people ask her, what are you doing this Saturday? She said, oh, I'm going to Lei Yin Temple. Oh, you are Buddhist? Oh, you are so backward. Oh, you are so old lady, okay, so-called old ladies. Only old ladies, old people would go to temples. And then she would say, oh, no, I'm not going to a temple. I'm just going there to sing. I'm in a choir. And so she said, you know, 唱歌比学佛更了不起. That was back in those days, okay? Back in those days, people look at Buddhism as superstitious, as backward, as being, you know, nothing that people who have any ambition or should do is not 时髦啦, okay, so-called, is not good, okay? But look at what they did, okay? And look at what Master was doing. Look at this. 佛教讲演歌咏大会. So you what? You talk, Dharma talk, and you also sing. You also sing. So this is how young people became interested. This is how many Buddhists became attracted. And I remember, I don't have a photo for that because maybe it's hard to take a photo. I remember Master Hsing Yun would also do slideshows. 万灯片. Hey, slideshows in the 50s and 60s are very, very modern. Remember slideshows? Right? So this is what he did. How innovative and forward-thinking that could be. You're talking about a monk from China who has no language, no dialect, just a very heavy accented Chinese that he was using. And of course, he was already having translators. He was trying to localize. So he had translators. Venerable Ci Wei was his translator, translate into the Taiwanese dialect. Otherwise, people wouldn't understand him. Okay? So this is what he was doing. And look at and the other one. You know, he was leading this whole truckload of young people to spread the word that there will be Nian Fo Gui, or there will be what? A service, there will be a talk. Because there was no newspaper. There's no internet. There's no no line, there's no whatever that, okay, so when was that? Hey, line me, right? You don't have none of that back then, right? None of that stuff. So you had to physically go on the street. You have to physically bang the gong, okay? And let people know something's happening, all right? But it was very interesting. Even today in Taiwan, they will still do the noisy part. Okay, when people were campaigning for election, you know, I'm not sure if this happens in Singapore, no. Singapore is a lot simpler, right? They were still, all of a sudden, I would be walking in the Taipei temple, and then all of a sudden, now I'm used to it. I said, what happened? Okay, there will be firecrackers and bing, bing, bang, bang, okay? And there will be loudspeakers, and there will be the candidates may be walking around or on a car or, you know, a truck. They're still doing it, okay? So this is how Buddhism was spread back then. You really have to do the footwork, okay? Okay, now, I don't know how smart your eyes are. Can you detect a couple of our elders there? Okay, these are the students. I would believe they are part of the choir. Those who would go on stage. These young Buddhists, they would sing, and then they would learn to do public speaking. You know what Master did? He said they say, of course, we don't know what to talk about, you know. So Master would make them write something, and he would correct them and have a script for them. And then they would take turns to go in front of a microphone or loudspeaker and go on stage and talk about what they learned. Isn't this like the study group? Right? There's an early form of study group. You study, you write, and then you will report. Right? And then, of course, they will sing. And let me tell you, at least two of our elders are there. And see if your eyes are good enough, all right? At least two of them are there, okay? And what else? So Master also established what the Guanghua Tuition Center, because 补习班呐, okay, the early forms of 补习班. And what he did was what? He was very good with literature. He was very good with writing. So he started correcting their articles, correcting what they write, okay? And you know who was there? Zheng Shiyan Jiao Shou, okay? He's a very prominent figure. He's a professor. And even Mr. Zhang, Professor Zhang, is in his 70s now. So that's how way back then, okay, these people dated. And these people all are Buddhists, of course, but some are not Buddhists. But they all learned back then from a temple, okay, from Buddhism. And the interesting part, 慈爱幼稚园, 慈爱 kindergarten. And who's one of the students? 慧纯法师, okay. 慧纯法师 was families was in Yilan, right? And if you know, of course, 慧纯法师mother was the older sister of 慈庄法师. Do you know that? Okay, so he's a nephew of 慈庄法师, and his older brother, 慧龙法师, is also a monk, right? So it's a family of monks, and eventually even their grandpa, 慈庄法师's father, also became a monk. So it's 3 generations, 4 people. Isn't it amazing? And this all came from Yilan. So, and of course we have our Guoguangshan Chonglin University, Chonglin Xueyuan. We have, over the 50 years, we have nurtured over 5,000 graduates. 5,000 graduates. And of course not everyone became us, okay? Some have finished school and they may have their own families. Some they work at Guoguangshan, maybe they're siku, and some of them maybe just supporting us, or they may just learn Buddhism on their own, okay? But this is a really good opportunity. Actually, we have, you know that famous movie director, Wu Yusheng, right? John Wu, right? John, he's got a very common name, but I don't remember which is Wu Yusheng. His wife went to Buddhist college, and her classmates are all 一字辈的, you know, But she's a Buddhist. She's a Buddhist. She would because Wu Yusan would have to go to Hollywood a lot, right? So when they go to LA to visit or to work, his wife sometimes would come to Silai Temple and meet with her old classmates from Tonglin Sheyuan. Okay, so this is how big the connection can be. Okay, with Buddhism. All right. Okay, so let's look at this. 私立 is a private one, okay? 12幼稚园, and this is what 宜兰念佛会主办. So actually, 宜兰念佛会, okay, it's a very early. Of course, it's called 念佛. 念佛会 says to come and recite the Buddha's name and 佛七, okay, 7-day chanting. But look at what this little group, in a way, the little temple did. It's education. It's actually education. So all these undertakings, and look at all these. Have you been to our Lanyang in Yilan, Lanyang Beiyuan? You could see a whole. It's like a historical museum. So what they did at Sengma Temple is something quite similar. But with Sengma Temple, the focus is mainly on Malaysia, the connection of Master with Malaysia, and of course Singapore as well, because it covers the whole region. Okay, so this is the kindergarten. Okay, you see those little, I don't know what they call it here. In Hong Kong they call it 保姆车. So it's like similar that they can pick up the kids. So but this is how it works. We cannot afford cars, so this is a bike. Okay, and the kids are all in there. All right. Whoa, big slide. I'm sure Wei Chuan Fa Si is one of them. I'm sure he's in there, but we just don't see him. And I think at Yilan there's a photo of him. There's actually a photo of him, and they said, yeah, this is Wei Chuan Fa Si. He was just a little boy, okay? So it all dates back then, okay? And of course, we all know this is Tonglin Sheyuan. Also, if you visit Fo Guangshan, if you go further in, it's not, sometimes I think if you want to really go inside, you have to make an appointment because it's kind of a little private area that we don't want people coming in and out, okay, because this is not a tourist site, but this is Tonglin Sheyuan. And how Fo Guangshan started is actually education. It's all education. So Master did not want to build a big temple. He only wanted to start with a Buddhist college. But why? Why all this growth? And the story, according to our elders, is because people want to watch the students coming and going, and say, "Oh, yeah, this is good. This is discipline." Because some of the people, they have never seen a Buddhist college or how classes are conducted. They like to see the discipline. So what even Chiang Kai-shek would accept is, you are practicing right. You are the intellectual. Okay, you are learning. You are not doing things like loosely. You're not just going there for meals, okay? So, and because to accommodate those visitors, Master decided to have Chao San Wei Guan, and decided to have a place for them to have service, to worship, and so on, okay? So we see that talents are essential to the journey of revitalization. So because when Buddhism was, remember when Master first went there, people had no idea what is the difference between Buddhism, Taoism, folk practice, Confucianism, or superstition. They have no idea. Everything is mixed up all in a bundle. So he wanted people to understand, okay, Buddhism, okay, the right Dharma, Jing Xin, okay. So the journey of revitalization. So at this point, it's not just for people who want to study in Buddhist college. What about the college students? They're already in college, okay? They already finished high school. They're on the way. So what they do is what we have summer camps. And look at all these college students who were at summer camps, included what? Dr. Chen Shaolong. And he is the one who is taking care of Master now, his health, operation, surgery, whatever. Okay, is Changgeng Yiyuan. He is the president. He is the honorary president. He was one of the top physicians in Taiwan. Okay, I think he's like semi-retired, but he's still involved, especially when it comes to have a whole medical team taking care of Master Xing Yun. So Zhao Chui Wei, I'm sure many of you might have known Zhao Chui Wei. She went to Vancouver, where I also started to learn Buddhism. Okay, I learned Buddhism in Vancouver. And she was the one starting the BLA there, the Blia Vancouver chapter there. So, and she is now, of course, she was the president of the Beiqu, Blia Zhonghua Beiqu. And Venerable Yi Kong, okay. And we love to hear her telling us stories of that summer camp. And she said it was whatever happened and what she did and so on. It was, so all these, okay, for receiving talents. So this is the first summer camp. So you see already there were some monastics and all these young people. Maybe Venerable Yi Kong is somewhere in there as well, because we couldn't quite detect exactly where, okay. So this is the photo. But yeah, and you notice, Master Xing Yun is very modest. He would invite what? Master Yin Sun. And he is not the one standing in the middle. Okay, he would be inviting very good and renowned teachers, okay, to teach. So this is how Fo Guangshan has been making progress. But today, so again, fast forward today, we also hold what we call International Youth Seminar on Chan and Life, and also Fo Guang Buddhist Monastic Retreat. So you can see what we did. Oh, okay. Jumped. Sorry. Let's see. I think I clicked it and. Okay. So now we have what? It's just 2012. Again, because it's a big photo, it's a little blurry. We have thousands of. Every year we've been holding this. It's more than 10 years, all right? As well as what we call temple life. It's like weekend temple retreats, or sometimes it's just temple life, or maybe a session on tea and chan, all right? And this is what they look like, okay? Lining up. And at Silai Temple, I'd like to tell you, we also did something similar. And this is what we call the Whittier College Winter Retreat. Okay, this is the main shrine of Silai Temple. And this is what we did this morning, Da Bei Chan, okay? And they came in to help. So every year since 2009, Whittier College is a local university in Whittier. Whittier is right next to Hacienda Heights. It's an old college, actually it's a university. It's over 100 years old. And what we did is, every January they have a very intensive course of 3 weeks where the students can sign up for 3 credits. So it's a good deal, right? 3 weeks every day, and then you get 3 credits, all right? And what we did was a philosophy professor, and of course it has to have the approval of the president and the dean, okay, of studies that they could do this. And what they did is, there are 3 weeks. 1 week they would kind of prime them, teach some classes every day, and kind of prepare them to have this retreat. 1 week retreat. Okay, all of these kids, it's usually about 50 of them. All of these kids, they would spend 1 week and live at Silai Temple. Wear uniforms. No devices. How they survived, I don't know. Okay, all these are taken away. None, okay? And they're separated, okay, men and women, separate dorms. And they have to get up, what, at 6 o'clock in the morning, which really killed them. They don't sleep till almost like 4 o'clock in the morning, okay? And they have to go to bed, what, lights off at 10. Well, 10 is the time where they start partying, right? So it's life-changing almost for most of them. And of course we have Q&A, we have group discussion. And it was funny, they would say, oh, you know, I never realized that when you get up in the morning, you can get so much done. I mean, it's logical, right? But no, because they haven't done that in their lives ever. So the fact that they have to get up early, they have to sleep early, eat vegetarian food, no cell phone, offline, okay. And the last 2 days is observe silence. Imagine kids not talking, college kids not talking. They have to observe silence. But we feed them, okay, we feed them, make sure that they eat right, even though it's vegetarian. And then they were surprised that, oh, actually vegetarian food is very good. But In today's time, with young people in the age, they're mostly anywhere from 18, okay, first year. Most of them are 18, 19, and maybe a few are over 20. But the most heartwarming thing for us is since 2009, we have people coming back on their own. They sign up, either they want to try it again, or they want to come back and start. So that's very heartwarming. And these are all, you see, and again, most of them are non-Asians. We would maybe in a year have a couple, 2 or 3, they're Asians, they may be Chinese, they may be Vietnamese, but the rest, okay, 95% of them are either white, Hispanic, okay, or African American. And many of them come from out of state, okay? And where they are, where their home is, where they come from, they don't have anything even close to Silai Temple, of course. They don't even have maybe a Buddhist center. They have no temple, no Buddhist, any kind of contact. So, but however, okay, we teach them etiquette, we teach them meditation, and they still have philosophy class. And because the professor was very close to us, the professor is like a good friend of the temple, and the professor would teach even Heart Sutra. And the theme can be simplicity, like how to live a simple life, and the temple, a Buddhist temple is a place to go if you want to learn to live a simple life, okay? And so this is what we do, and we're still doing it, okay? We're still doing it since 2009. And this is like a graduate, I'm sorry, I found only a very small, blurry photo. This is Bao Hosang. And Bao Hosang was the abbot, okay, and this is me. This is Venerable Wei Shen. I think he's Malaysian, and this is Manjing Fa, Venerable Manjing, okay. So we took this is like the closing ceremony, all right. And mostly they're very happy, because most of them, they're not used to wearing uniforms. And what they would do is quite funny, you know, because they can keep the uniforms. And some of the guys especially, they would wear the uniform to school the next day. Just show off, okay, and then people may be curious. So, you know, when you're dealing with young people, you know, they're pretty amazing, and there are a lot of surprises, okay? Okay, so now, since then, okay, since the kindergarten, since the summer camps, now we have what? Pullman Senior High School, I'm sure you know that. And it has expanded so much, we had a new campus a few years ago. So the old Pullman High School is now Fu Wei Jia Yuan. Okay, I'm sure some of you have known that. And then we have also Jun Tao, Jun Yi, okay, as primary and secondary school. And of course we have University of the West, okay, University of the West in the US. I used up all the battery again. University of West, Nanhua and Fo-Guang in Taiwan. Nantian Institute in Australia, and this is where Venerable Jue, okay, I'm sure you all know her, Singaporean, and Nantian. And the latest is Guangming College in the Philippines. And that is actually the cradle, the early form is the cradle for all those performers of Prince Siddhartha the musical. Okay, there are most of them are Catholics actually. And in 2013, the group going to Silai Temple to perform, we had both. We have Catholics, we have even a few Muslims. And they play what? In the biography of the Buddha. So it's pretty amazing. So you can see the pictures of Pullman and Jun Tao, Jun Yi, okay? All the happy kids. And this is University of the West. This is Nantian Institute. Beautiful. It's a brand new campus, all right? And of course we have Nanhua, Fo-Guang, and Guangming College is actually being constructed and currently is housed within the Manila Temple, the Mabuhay Temple. Okay, I've never been there myself, but maybe some of you have because it's so close to Singapore. So those are the 5. It's a consortium of the 5 colleges, and the benefit is now the program is now in action. Is say for example you study at Fo-Guang, but you can have 1 year at Silai or Silai Daxue or university or at US, and it will still count. Okay. So this is a very good opportunity, or you could go to Nantian, okay? So we have this exchange program in place, all right? So you can see that from all the way, okay, from the Buddhist time, to especially in Chinese Buddhism, to the Republic, to Taiwan, where the Dharma was brought to Taiwan by Master Hsing Yun, and all the development starting out from little kids. And actually, I miss one. We have a Xiao Xing kindergarten currently, actually, in southern Taiwan. Okay, so it's a very popular kindergarten. So it's like carrying on, okay, the way of 慈爱 幼稚园. Okay, so this is what we've been doing. And this is the whole history, okay, in the last maybe, I would say, 100 years, okay, of contemporary development. And this is the end of my 2-day presentation. So we have a little time, maybe 5 minutes. Any question or thoughts or any stories that you'd like to share? Let's open up for everyone.
Merci, Pastor. Actually, just now you asked us questions and say if you met someone who have no contact with Buddhism and he or she asks you, what is Buddhism? We didn't hear the answer from you, so actually I'm very interested to find the answer,
okay.
because sometimes we get that kind of question as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course, it all depends on the person's background. Okay, if it's come from a Christian background, or what they have in mind is God. Okay, and they come in. They would. Before I really know too well, even in Vancouver. Because I was be the one translating or helping with English speakers. Okay, sometimes you have a parent coming in with a child and they have to do a project or homework or whatever, and then the father would always say, "Oh, so Buddhists are atheists, right?" So atheists sound a little negative, 无神论啦. Okay, so for them it's like, because as long as they say that you don't believe in God, okay, you don't believe in God, you don't believe in Jesus Christ, then you are an atheist. Okay, so that is their interpretation, and I don't want to argue with that, but sometimes it's skillful means. Okay, they would consider, oh, so I'm a Christian, so God is my God, and you are Buddhist, so Buddha is your God. Okay, so to speak. But I would tell them, Buddhism teaches us to be a better person. Okay, teaches us to be better, because you have to let them know that Buddhism is not, first of all, superstitious. Buddhism is actually based on ethics and morals. Okay, Buddhism is a religion or a faith or a practice that help us to live a better life, to be a better person, to be a better person. And that's why if you really look back at history, when Buddhism first passed to China, have you heard of the term 格义佛教? Okay, 格义 is like 格 is 一个格子那个格. Okay, 格义. What the meaning of that is, they borrow the current philosophy or terminology. They borrow like terms from Taoism. They borrow terms from Confucianism to explain Sanskrit, basically, because the teachings were in Sanskrit more than 2,000 years ago. Those so-called foreign monks, 西域 from the western regions, they call them foreign monks, right? And coming in with all these teachings, there's no way. That's the problem with translation, okay? But how do you explain to them? So even here, if you go to America, if you go to a Japanese Buddhist community, they call themselves Buddhist priests, or they call it a Buddhist church. Okay, this is something that we find difficult to accept, right? Because a priest is Catholic, a priest is strictly Catholic. And so I would tell them that, oh, it's all about being a happy person, being a better person, that we can be a better person, we can help others to be a better person, and we want to live a happier life, okay? So when those are people who completely have no idea, or some people would say that, oh, so you worship idol, right? That's 偶像嘛, okay? So nowadays idol is more like the superstars. You're more like who's coming to have a concert, who's coming in for a big movie, and he's coming in person, or she is coming in person. Those are idols. But Master Hsing Yun has an interpretation. It's not bad to have idols. So actually it's people, of course you're not looking at, oh, I like to have her eyes, or I like to have her figure, or I like to have how handsome he looks, okay. But you're talking about what's inside. You're talking about what's inside. But as humans, you say that we need what? Images, in a sense. We need to be reminded, okay? So I think I was in a car talking to, the other day, I think I was still in Malaysia, and we talked about some of the, like the mosque, right? 清真寺, or even the Mormons. I've been into Mormon temples, and the walls are all white. They don't have any images. And of course, for Muslim, it's sacrilege, okay, to have an image of even the Prophet, not to speak of Allah. No image. So they say, so who are you worshipping? Who are you bowing to? Right? So you have to visualize what is Allah like, or what is, that maybe for us is a little unusual, okay? But I think that we need reminders. And people say that, why are you bowing to a statue, okay? Well, then they may be Protestants. You go to Vatican and see how many images they have. you go to the St. Peter's Basilica. You look at that beautiful. Now they have a very thick, bulletproof glass. The Pieta. There's Mother Mary holding Jesus Christ from the cross. It's like the body of Jesus is all limp. That's very famous. And Michelangelo did that. And the funny story was Michelangelo did that because Michelangelo is only famous for paintings. Nobody believed that he did that Pieta. So he was very angry. So he came up in the middle of the night and carved his name there. All right. That's Michelangelo. But you see so many images. If you go to the famous museums, you don't even have to go to Europe. I mean, maybe even in Singapore, or you go to America, you go to Met Museum, like for example. All those paintings are all images of angels, of Jesus Christ, of Mother Mary, of whatever. If people say that we worship idols, they are not Catholics, okay? They're Protestants, or they're people who don't really have a faith, because they look upon those as what? Superstitions. But if you say, I bow, bow, okay, make a full bow. We say it is, well, first of all, it's a very humbling practice. It's a practice of humility. We put our head down. It may be difficult for some men, actually. Okay, for men, it's very difficult, depending on where you come from. Men, well, in our generation, I could see my father bowing to my grandma, like for example, because that is a tradition. But sometimes, besides your parents or grandparents, men find it very hard to make a bow, especially all the way they put their head, to the ground. That's actually a very humbling practice. It's a practice of humility. And we say when we bow to the Buddha, we're not bowing to a statue. Actually, if you want to visualize, we're bowing to our own what? Our own Buddha. We're connecting with our own Buddha. You join your palms, it's the 10 Dharma realms. Okay? We are bowing to our own Buddha nature. We are respecting our Buddha nature. And if you recognize the Buddha as a teacher, the Buddha always said that he's a teacher. Okay? If you recognize your teacher, it's recognize someone who can help us, teach us to be a better person. And the Buddha said, you can be like me. You can be like me, okay? I gave you all the teachings, but whether you practice, whether you do it, it's for you to do it. Nobody can do it for it. It's like, I'm hungry, can you eat for me? No. You can have a big meal and I'm still hungry if I don't eat. I have to eat myself. So I would always tell people asking me about, oh, do you have a book on meditation? Or, so this is a very good selling book, by the way. Then I would tell them, this is the what, how, and why you meditate. But you have to do it. I said, nobody can do it for you. And the good thing is, once you do it, you have it, nobody can take it away from you either. Okay? So for people who don't really know Buddhism or why we bow, why we are so respectful, why we do this and that, you tell them, because we want to be a better person. We want to live a happier life. And we want to learn to let go of things that we shouldn't be holding on, be attached to. Well, there are many ways, okay, depending on the person. And some people can be very aggressive, or can be they're insulting even, okay? But you have to let it go. I mean, you don't engage in starting fighting with them. I mean, you can always start a debate on what? Politics, religion. Okay, and that's where the wars are from. because everybody insists that I'm the best. But the Buddha said, hey, everybody has a Buddha nature. We can all be Buddhas. Some people may not like it because they say, how come you say I have a Buddha inside? Okay, they find it very difficult to accept, right? So, do you have a question?
Talking about talents are essential to the journey of revitalization of Buddhism. So as disciples of the Buddha or members of the Buddha's Light International Association, what can we do in order to help in the revitalization of Buddhism moving forward?
Well, I think first of all we have to be open-minded. Okay, we have to be more accepting. That we have to open our eyes, open our arms, open our hearts. That's even more important. Okay, so I remember Master said that when you take the precepts, we uphold the precepts as for us. We don't take the precepts to measure others. Okay, that's always this danger. Okay, when we feel that we know very well, we feel that we are very upright, we practice well, and then we started having trouble 看人不顺眼 Okay, we're having trouble looking at others. Yeah, you see, non-Buddhists, yeah, they don't keep the precepts. Or I think we have to really open up our hearts. Okay, be more open-minded. And if we say to train talents, I think we always say that, especially in attracting young people. I mean, we're not talking little kids even. Like the most difficult is people in between the teenage years, or maybe just a little bit before that, right? That's a little difficult. So you have to kind of go along somewhat, but it's like a game of pull and tug, okay, and push, okay. So I think we have to be more open-minded, but don't give up. Don't give up, okay, because it takes, look at what Master did 60 years ago, 50 years ago, and what we have today. So if we don't carry on, if we don't persevere, if we don't follow through, then it will, when we all go, everything goes with us, okay? There's nobody to carry on. So we have to, 接班人, okay, to get people to succeed, get people to carry on. Carrying on, so that's why 传灯, handing down the light. We have to hand it down. I mean, if you really look at the world's population, it's not just for Guangshan or anywhere, even the whole world, because aging. We have fewer young people and more older people, okay? So we need to pass them down, and actually it's for their benefit too. We once said that, okay, mom is a Buddhist, but the kids are not. So when you passed away, then they would forget about you. I mean, that's the reality of it. That's the serious. Or okay, maybe you have a place up there on the 4th floor, and say, oh, I don't go to a temple. Oh, how come mom is there? Okay, never mind. Okay. Or they say, make it very difficult. Okay, it's once a year. I'll go there once a year. I go up and then I go. Okay. Do you like that to happen? No. You don't want like to happen. Okay. Even if they know that, okay, we'll be on the 4th floor. Okay, we all meet up there. But your kids are not coming, or your grandkids are not coming. They don't even know who you are, because they never go to a temple. And then, what is that place? How come grandpa is there? Right? That is the reality. That is a reality. I mean, I think we need to. It's not just for ourselves, actually. It's really for their benefit as well. Look at how frightening this world is coming to. I mean, we don't believe we can live to see things like that happening. That, the weather and all these horrible. I mean, people are still asking me about the wildfires in California. I'm still very afraid, because even though we are in the south, but it's like historical. There's nothing ever like that happened in the history of California. There could be burning like that. They say I watched the news a little bit, and they say they have confirmed 40 deaths, but a couple of hundred people are missing. And you don't know how many of those have actually died. And thousands upon thousands of people were evacuated, and thousands of homes are all burned to the ground. Businesses, buildings, burned to the ground. And it's still burning. It's still burning, because it's so dry and so windy. And even Southern California, I'm very afraid, because one year, I think it was more than 10 years ago, a motorcycle crashed into a hillside and it started to burn. And we could see the smoke just from Silai Temple, a huge black cloud of smoke there. But luckily it was put out quite fast. And before my time there at Silai Temple, they say one time, I'm not sure if Miao Fa Shi witnessed that. They say the other side of the hill was burning, right? Just across the road. So it could be, I mean, fires are very difficult, and especially when it's so dry. And firefighters die just wanting to rescue. So look at what the world is. I'm not just talking about fires, I'm talking about human minds. I mean, people have no, what do you call it? No scruples, they have no kindness, they have no principles. Okay, and look at the shootings in Las Vegas. The police still could not figure out why. Even though ISIS claimed that is our brother, okay? But they say there's no proof. There's nothing they could find. Why this 60-something-year-old man could scheme and plan and bought all these high-power rifles and guns and started doing and killing almost 60 people and hurting many more. So, this is it's not just for us, it's really for our children and grandchildren and the future generations and the community in general. So it's important that we persevere. It's important that we still, keep doing whatever's successful, keep at it. Whatever's not working out right, try to fix it, tweak it, change it a little bit. But I think generally we need the resolve. We need the resolve. We need the perseverance and the attitude as well. It's not just, okay, I'm giving up. There's no giving up. We may come back again. We may come back. We're up there at 4th floor, but we can meet again somehow, okay, in a future life. We don't know, and there's still work to do, okay? If we do a better work this lifetime, even in the future, we can enjoy the fruits, okay? All right? Did I answer your question? Okay, thank you. Okay, any other question? Or it's past the time, right? But,
Yep, any other questions? If there's no questions, then I think we can conclude it. So I think let's us all rise and give Miao a bow. Okay, 谢谢师父. Thank you.